Ready when you are.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, do we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Jamie Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Derek Pontless?
Here.
Mr. Peter Hansel?
Here.
Mr. John Moody?
Here.
Mr. Christopher Poole?
Here.
Mr. Chris Williams?
Here.
Chairman Charles Gray?
Here. And proof of publication?
The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on March 1st, 2023, May 3rd, 2023, and May 10th, 2023, or by affidavit of certified mailings in St. Louis.
All right, thank you very much. But we have any minutes to approve, so if not, we'll move for our instructions today. We're the Planning Commission. We're appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and we meet twice monthly. We serve as a local planning agency, and we hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissioners recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, and conditional use requests. Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. If anyone is in opposition to any land development code amendments, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the Board of County Commissioner meeting. Those of you who are not familiar with the format of our meetings, it's divided into three sections: continuances, consent, and regular items. If there's been a request for continuance by an applicant or the staff, it's been our tradition to approve those requests unless there are extenuating circumstances. On the consent, we're going to go through the consent items one at a time. If there's something on consent that somebody in the audience would like to have pulled for discussion, raise your hand when we call it out, and we'll be glad to pull it for discussion, and then it'll go on to the regular items. Regular items are things that'll be fully heard and vetted today by the applicant and people that are here with questions. Applicants will have 3 minutes to make their presentation, and questioners will have 3 minutes to ask their questions, and then the applicant will have an opportunity to come back up and answer any of those questions. Normally, if there's been a written request at least 24 hours prior to this meeting for additional time, it's been our tradition to approve or at least approve a modified request for additional time, and I'm not aware of any correct requests.
We did not receive any requests.
Okay. This is a good opportunity for those of you who have cell phones. I'm sure most of you do. Please put them on the silent position so they don't interrupt somebody if they're speaking. And before we start the regular meeting, is there anybody here to speak on a topic that's not on today's agenda? Is there anybody here to speak on something that's not on the agenda today? Okay, I was told that there might be, so that maybe they didn't show up. Anyway, for any of those who plan to give testimony today, if you please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Okay, thank you.
I think he's ready to talk. Mr. Chair, can we just confirm that nobody wants to speak on an item that's not on today's agenda?
I think that's what they're talking about back there, I believe. I'm waiting for the drum roll. Do we have a speaker? Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you give us your name and address, please,
Yes, sir.
and
My name is Nathan Miller, Nathan Clark Miller Jr. I live at 3621 Elfers Parkway, Newport Richey. I am new to this procedure, and so I don't know if I'm supposed to be here today, but I am here to observe and learn. This is way out of my league. I got a 9th grade education. So I just asked if something comes up that I think that might pertain to me, I have the right to speak. Even though this is for the estates of something, I know next week is for where I live at. And I'm trying to learn. I just learned that I got to put in a request 24 hours when it comes to me. I'm just here to observe, sir. I don't know, I don't think I have a right to speak here. But it is my town. You know, I want to live here. So that's all I ask.
well, since you are speaking, obviously you do have a right to speak. So next time, if you want to come to the meeting and you have something you'd like to speak about, raise your hand. We'll make sure you have that opportunity. Okay,
so
thank you very
I
much.
need to make sure I sign in next time before I get here.
Sure. Before the meeting starts, yeah.
Sir, you did be clear, you don't necessarily have to sign in, but when the chair asks, is there anybody that wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda, that's when you would get up and say, yes, I want to speak.
Yes, sir. Well, I don't even know the agenda. I even looked at the board yesterday, and there's nothing posted about today. You know, I had to go upstairs. Thankful they gave me today's date and my date, you know, and they told me today don't pertain to you, but I'm trying to learn and, you know.
Well, we welcome you, and we're glad you came.
Sir, just, what is the item that you do eventually want to speak to?
Sir, a friend of mine,
Take your time.
Just take your time, okay? And just,
out of the kindness of his heart, he didn't let me live on the streets. And he even paid my electric bill for 18 months. And maybe there's been some code violations, I don't know. He don't know. And it looks like I might be homeless. And so I'm trying to figure out, I know there's help out there, but I don't want to live in a place where I can't have my cat and I can't work on my bicycle. I have an electric bicycle. I know there's a little struggle going with that with people. Mine does 18 miles an hour, and I do obey the rules.
Sir, just so I'm clear, you have a friend that has got some code violations?
I violated the code violations. He didn't know I'm the one that violated them, sir. And my attorney told me I could sue him, sir. I'm not suing nobody.
So just so we're clear, this group does not hear code violations?
No, sir, this ain't, but I'm here to listen, sir.
Okay.
I do not know the procedure. I've been on the phone until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. 9th grade education is very hard. Very hard.
No, I understand your
No,
your
it's just
dilemma,
not,
but
it's,
this particular group does not hear code violations about violations of the code.
no, sir, I learned today I got a request before from the
we'll
student.
talk then.
Okay.
I'll
She's
help you
helping me.
backwards.
She's doing as well as she can do. I'm just here to learn, sir.
Okay, you're welcome to sit in the audience and learn all you want.
Thank you, sir.
We can get you the right spot.
Okay.
You're in good hands. All right, is anybody else here to speak something that's not on today's agenda? If not, Liam, can we proceed?
Yes, Liam Devine, Planning and Development. Item PC1, PDD 23-7667. It is a zoning amendment to Cubulus and Little MPUD Master Plan Unit Development, Little Jean D, Little Terry W, Little Peter A rezoning from C2 General Commercial District, ER Estate Residential District, and AC Agricultural District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow the development for a maximum of 384 multifamily dwelling units and 10,000 square feet of residential commercial retail on approximately 19.99 acres, 17.99 acres. This is coming with you for a continuance request to a date uncertain. PC2, PDD PC3-7701. It's a zoning amendment.
So wait,
Dignity-
Liam, can we
Yep.
take up PC1 first
Yeah.
before we move to PC2?
Yeah,
Get a
we wanna-
motion, please.
Yeah, by the way, I'm just, for the public record, I'm recusing myself from voting on PC1.
Is there anybody here to speak?
So is there anybody here to speak on PC1? If not,
Liam, is
applicant
the
present?
applicant's in agreement with the continuance?
Okay. Anyone here to object?
Well, I was asking Liam, is the applicant okay with the continuance to a date uncertain?
Yeah, she's raised. her
Yes.
hand.
She's yes, saying yes, okay.
You're being blocked.
Okay, I just couldn't see her, okay.
Motion to approve the continuance to date uncertain?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
And let the record reflect that Chairman Gray recused himself on that vote.
Thank you.
PC2, PDD 23-7701, a zoning amendment in Dignity Funeral Services, Inc., Michaels and Lindquist, a change in zoning from an MF1 multifamily medium density district and C2 general commercial district to a C2 general commercial district. This is coming with a request to a continuance request to a date uncertain.
All right. Is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to continue.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
PC3 PDD 23-0100, a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, CPAS 22-23 Pine Ridge, Little, and Ross, providing for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map 2-5 in sheet 10, from COM commercial and Res 9 residential 9 dwelling units per acre to Res 9 residential 9 dwelling units per acre on approximately 26.2 acres of real property located on the north side of Ross Lane, approximately 0.18 miles east of Little Road and Ross Lane intersection. This is coming with a continuance request to a date uncertain.
Okay. The applicant present. Anyone here to object? See no objection. Is that an objection back there? I thought I saw you raise your hand. No? Yeah.
No, sorry, I scratched my head.
Oh, see? Better be careful. Good thing you're not at an auction.
You just bid $100,000. Congratulations.
Sold. Okay. We have a motion?
Motion to continue?
Second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
PC4 PDD 23-7662, a zoning amendment in the name of Greenfield Del Webb River Reserve MPUD, Parkway Hills LLC ETL, a petition for a rezoning from MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow 1,205 residential units and 213,600 square feet of non-residential. In your agenda packet, it did come before you with a request to a continuance to a date uncertain. The applicant requested a continuance to June 22nd in Newport Richey at 1:30 p.m.
June 22nd. Okay. The applicant present? All right. Is there anyone here to object? See no one.
Motion to continue.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second. Further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor
But to be
signify
clear,
by
that
saying aye.
you're continuing to the June date?
Yes.
Okay,
June 22nd.
okay. No, I don't think, I didn't let anybody vote, sorry. Go
It's
ahead.
okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay.
Onto the consent items, PC5, PDD 23-0360. It's a development agreement, an Aprilli development agreement, Connected City King Lake Partners owner, LP, a development agreement for the Aprilli MPUD to design, permit, and construct roadway improvements in exchange for transportation development fee credits. This is coming with a recommendation for approval.
Okay.
I believe we have opposition for PC6, so if you would like to pull that one for a regular item.
All right.
And then PC7, PDD 23-0189. It's a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, CPAS 22-27, RBR Properties, PAW, providing for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map-2-5 2023-15 in sheet 12 from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per acre, to IL, industrial light, on approximately 11.52 acres of real property located on the north side of State Road 52, approximately 0.15 miles east of Giddens Road, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, amending the sub-area policy 2-952, Paul Materials, and a comprehensive plan text amendment to sub-area policy FLU 7.1.52, Paul Materials, providing for a text amendment as necessary for internal consistency, providing for repealer, severability, and effective date. It's coming with a recommendation for approval.
All right, is the applicant present? Anyone here to object?
Are we hearing the two consent items?
Yes.
Is this a vote for both of those items?
Yeah, I think those are the only two consent items, right?
PC 5 and PC 7.
Yes.
Okay. So we have two consent items. I see no objection on either one of them. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on either one? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay. And we pulled PC 6.
PC 6. Would you like to hear PC 6 first, Mr. Chair?
It's going to go into the regular item, so yes.
Yes, probably.
Good afternoon. Ebro Stevens, Long Range Planning. Presenting PDD 230321, a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment in the name of CPAS 2306, Carly, New York Avenue Industrial. The subject site is located in the West Market area. The applicant is proposing a future land use amendment to amend future land use map 2-15 in sheet 3 from ROR, retail office residential, to IL, industrial light, on approximately 10 acres for light industrial uses. The subject property is located on the south side of New York Avenue. A resolution to the applicant's proposal is to amend future land use map 2-15 and sheet 3 from ROR, retail office residential, to IL, industrial light. A rezoning petition will follow the comprehensive plan amendment, amending the zoning from MF1, multifamily medium density, to I1, light industrial park. Aerial. The existing future land use. The proposed future land use. The zoning. The following policies support the proposed amendment. Policy FLU 112, concentration of urban densities. Policy FLU 187, economic development. Policy FLU 1810, preservation of capacity for employment generating uses. And Policy FLU 811, the West Market area establishment. Staff recommend the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and to recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
All right.
I'll be
Thank
happy
you.
to answer any questions.
Any questions from up here? Nothing yet. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, for the applicant. This property is currently zoned MF1, could have a multifamily as a matter of right. Today, this client brought forward an amendment to make his property light industrial. We were the leaders in this. The board then subsequently directed staff to do an IL-initiated amendment in this area, which would include this property, but we were already in. So there will be, at some point, staff will bring forward more IL in this area, because this is an area where it looks like IL needs to locate and will locate. I imagine we've been pulled, but I did get a call by Mr. Buer on behalf of Hudson Waterworks a day or two ago. My days blend together at this point on a Thursday afternoon. And apparently, Hudson Waterworks has a well in the area of this property. I don't know where. It does not show on Pasco mapper, which means it's not mapped pursuant to the county's wellhead protection ordinance. I've asked for that information. I think staff maybe asked for the same information. I think if they received it, I would have received it.
So staff did request from our Natural Resources Department if they had any information. They did not know of any wellhead protection for the neighboring site. We did reach out to SwiftMud to ask them if they had any information if there's wellhead protection here. They did confirm they do have a WUB, a water use permit, but are unaware, or did not respond, did not confirm whether there is wellhead protection on that site.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So my approach to this, I still want to receive their information and take a look at it. We're at the land use stage for light industrial. It does not mean, and I know what I say here because I helped write the wellhead protection ordinance for the county when I was here. By saying that there's a wellhead in the vicinity of this property does not mean you can't develop it industrial. If there is a wellhead and it flows the right way and all the different science that goes along with that, if that comes to be that there needs to be protection of that well relative to the development of this property, it's a zoning issue. The code spells out, if you're in a wellhead protection area, what you can and can't do in an industrial zoned property. So I would, obviously you're gonna take public comment, we'll hear what's said, but I just wanted to kind of tell you that I'm looking for the information, and when we get more information, we can address it. Liam is handling the zoning part of this side of this, we're at the land use side of it. But obviously, you know, wells are important. So we'll get to the bottom of it, and we can address it as zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, any more comment, any public comment, questions? You have your name and address, sir?
Yes, sir. My name is Durwood Horak. I'm the utility director with Hudson Waterworks.
Okay.
We just found out about this proposed changes to the land there. This land is adjacent to our wells, to 3 wells. These are major production wells. We are mandated by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection to have a wellhead protection program, which we submit to them. With regards to submitting that to the county, I'm not sure if we're required to do that. Apparently, we're not. This wellhead protection program states, first of all, it's Chapter 62-521 of the Florida Administrative Code under FDEP. Number 7 says wellhead protection area means an area designated by the department consisting of 500 feet radial setback distance from around a potable water well, where groundwater is provided, the most stringent protection measure to protect the groundwater source for a potable water well, and includes the surface and subsurface of the surrounding wells. So that means on top of the ground and below the ground. This property in question, the entire property is in that 500-foot radius, okay? Our wells, well number 1, well number 3, and well number 4, are major production wells. We produce 1 million gallons a month from those wells. They are actually 79.6 feet from the property line. If you go completely across the property line, we're at 470 feet, so it encompasses the whole property. With regards to the reason that we're opposing this is because under your permitted uses, under 528.2 permitted uses, light industrial park district, you have several things, there's 36 things that can go there. For instance, number 2, building material supplies, storage, and manufacturing Anyone knows that if you store pressure-treated lumber, you got cyanide that could come off that and cause us major problems. Arsenic. Arsenic is a bad thing for a well. I think one of our other major things is towing service and connected storage of vehicles. And I believe that's what they're really looking at doing here. That means if a vehicle's in a wreck and it comes there and they store it there, you got all kinds of oils leaking. You got oil, you got transmission fluid, you got brake fluid, you got antifreeze. All this is gonna go in the ground. If these 3 wells are shut down, it puts us out of business. We supply drinking water to the whole city of Hudson. We have other wells. We have several other wells, but these are major production wells. My whole point is we must oppose this, and we must oppose it because there's a potential for contaminating these wells, and we will continue to oppose it. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you one question, sir? Are you the supplier for, the water supplier for this? If this property were to be developed, would you be the one supplying the water, or would it be?
That is correct. Our office building is one, well, there's this property, then there's a piece of property, then our office building. And then on the other side, to the west, immediately adjoining this property, is our wells. We have several wells in the area. We have some on our property. However, they're out of that 500-foot cone of influence. And the property right next to us has a small yard where they store vehicles, wrecked vehicles, if you will, but they are away from our, out of that 500-foot radius. This is a major concern of ours because this is going to be right there. It's right in there. I mean, we would, first of all, be in violation of the Department of Environmental Protection, wellhead protection program, and, we're required to have that.
Does 62.5 have any specific activity limitations in that 500-foot radius, things that absolutely cannot happen?
Absolutely.
Like our own ordinance, for instance, one of the things is a stormwater
Yeah,
management.
it certainly does. It lists several. I don't know if you want me to read them.
I'd like to hear them.
Okay.
Got a minute?
Sure. It calls for, it says, new solid waste disposal facilities regulated under 62701 Florida Administrative Code are prohibited. New generators of hazardous waste as regulated by 62730, which includes household hazard waste as defined in Schedule 40, Part 261B, 1994. Herein incorporated and adopted by reference, shall comply with the secondary. New hazardous waste treatment, storage, disposal, transfer facilities requiring permits, new above ground, and it goes on to a whole bunch of stuff. Our biggest concern is oils, greases, fluids. The problem is, this person may be absolutely not going to have none of that stuff, but light industrial, according to your code, allows that. So 6 weeks or 6 years or 10 years from now, they could put a large storage area in there and start leaking that stuff in the ground, and it would contaminate them wells. We just can't take the chance. I mean, water is very, very difficult.
One more question, because the existing land use is ROR, which I imagine there probably are some retail uses that would be allowed under ROR that would also potentially leak oil. So I'm curious as to, and if they develop that use today, there's not much we could do because it would be allowed as ROR. Is there some reason you can't address, if you're the water supplier for the property, couldn't you say we're just not going to provide service to you unless you address our concerns about the use?
Well, I'm not sure of that. I'm not sure we can refuse service, water service, for, more or less to make them comply with us. I don't believe we can. we supply water because it's our franchise service area, and we supply water to anyone that requires water. I mean, we can't pick and choose who we service. There's absolutely no county lines down there, so they couldn't get water from the county, so we would have to, you know, we would have to provide them with
I guess
drinking water.
I guess I'll ask Liam, is an oil change, like a car oil change facility allowed in C2 or in the ROR commercial zoning?
The property is currently zoned AC, but ROR would allow C2 uses if they went through a zoning amendment and it was approved. That would be a C2 permitted use.
Durwood, does
Property's currently zoned multifamily, isn't it? MF1?
I might have been looking, the subject property is, sorry, correction,
subject
you are right,
property.
MF1.
The AC zone, that's your property directly to the west, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Does the DEP put the burden of enforcement of the 500-foot radius around the wellhead on you?
Absolutely.
Or is that the department's?
They put that in burden on the utility.
So how does the utility have the ability to decide what can or cannot be developed on a property within that radius?
Well, I'm here today to do that, and I would say that they would have to move forward and with an injunction, and however, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, but our attorney has advised me that he would move forward with whatever it takes to protect those wells. And again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm here to
But
oppose.
you just said that you'd be reluctant to deny them service. I mean, to follow up on
There's a
Mr.
legal standing.
I mean, to follow up on Mr. Moody's point, if it's your duty, I would think that if you have a duty to make sure it doesn't occur there, that you could deny them service if,
I'm believing that's probably more the department's duty or an applicant's duty to make sure that they're protecting the wellhead. I can't imagine that they place the burden on the utility to go try to enforce what development entitlements on an adjacent property. I think what they're saying, and I'd like to see 62.5, and I'm sorry because I've been studying 62.6 for the last 2 weeks. Guess I should have read the chapter before. But I'd like to see the language of that to find out what obligations there are for the owner or applicant of this property to comply with those regulations.
See, that's what,
And I have a question for staff. In our own wellhead protection ordinance, what's the radius from the well, and what are the limitations that our ordinance has? Because I know one of them is a stormwater management system, and whether this is a towing yard or this is an apartment complex, that's going to be a required feature. So that's going to be a problem for anybody.
see, we had a school board property that had a well protection area, and we were cognizant of that. And so I would think that whatever was coming in, there would be some ordinance from us or somewhere that would control what was allowed in that wellhead protection area.
well, but I think Barbara's point earlier, and staff probably confirmed it, that these are not wells that the county has recognized in our ordinances as mapped as wellhead protection.
You want to tell the residents of Hudson you're going to poison their wells?
Well, I'm not suggesting that we want to poison wells. I'm saying that I'm not sure our ordinance would kick in to cover the situation.
What is the process when a new well is brought to your attention? Does that wellhead protection map get revised or updated based on new information?
Mr. Chairman, I might be able to speak to that. The owner-operator is responsible of a community water system, is responsible to inform the county and provide the county with the information of the wellhead locations and all of that, at which point the maps then get updated on the county system. And we have two separate boundaries, one that's immediate to the actual well itself, and then one that's related to, as Ms. Wilhite said, the flow of the water underneath. There's a 500-foot protection area there. So it's essentially up to the community water system to bring us the information on their wells so that we can get it into our maps.
The only thing I can add to that is, number one was drilled in 1964, number two was 73, and number four was in 74. and that's
Let
way
me
before me.
just
Well
hold you
before.
up right there.
So,
Jamie, you
so
had
if that is the case, if the maps are gonna be updated, then the county's wellhead protection ordinance comes into play, then it doesn't matter what it's zoned, because there's gonna be limitations on what can be done, based on the
Exactly.
ordinance.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to.
so,
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I'll acknowledge what Mr. Girardi said. That is factually correct, and that's why we asked for the information. We need to collaborate a little bit. We are neighbors. If you wanted to buy the property, you should buy the property.
I think my
So-
attorney tried reaching out to you 2 or 3 times.
I spoke to him. No, sir, you're wrong.
I spoke with him one time. But
Well, he only asked to speak to you one time. But we're neighbors, right? And so it irritates me some because they should buy property if they want to prohibit uses. But that's not the situation. I'm not asking that you approve this so we can damage public drinking wells. What I'm saying is, what Mr. Tippin has said is there's a mapping process, not just like they should coordinate with their neighbor, they need to coordinate with the county. So if they coordinate with the county, get them the maps, we can move forward. We are going to address this rezoning. Fortunately, we're before you with a rezoning, a land use and a rezoning, so this could be brought to light, can be taken care of, and we can make sure the public water the public drinking water is protected. So I think we have everything set up. Fortunately, we have a wellhead protection ordinance. This isn't a new thing to us of how you balance these rights, property rights versus protecting a public drinking source. So I'd ask if you would support moving forward. We know we're not going to get through rezoning without getting this addressed, and hopefully we'll start a collaboration between not only their property and our property, but also the county relative to this utility. Thank you.
Barbara, let me ask you a question. If, in fact, there's wells here, it sounds like there might be, you already have a voluntary deed restriction you're proposing anyway. Would you have any objection to restricting to the uses that would otherwise comply with our wellhead protection ordinance?
Yeah, first of all, we need to look at I don't have any of this information, but Liam and I intended to, one, get the information, and then 2, look at the ordinance, and then do something relative to the ordinance, whether it's, I assume it'd be a deed restriction. So yes, but we got to take our steps of 1, I need some kind of information, just like staff does, to see what we're talking about and verify, all the information, and then look at the ordinance and then work on it relative to the rezoning. But that's our intention.
Barbara, you helped draft the ordinance.
I did,
And
a
maybe
long
you
time ago.
Two can each help each other here. What uses are restricted within that wellhead protection area?
I have no idea anymore, but the ordinance is very clear. It's drafted off of DEP, so it's.
So I can tell you that's in the Land Development Code, section 808.7. The reason why we're coordinating is that also prohibits any new Euclidean industrial rezoning. So if there is a wellhead protection area there, then we wouldn't be able to go, they wouldn't be able to go
I read that
Euclidean.
ordinance before,
So
I'm asking, and it does tie into this.
Yes, it does have several of the uses that he stated from Florida State Statute chapter listed there as prohibited uses.
So what are those?
Solid waste disposal, discharge from commercial and industrial waste treatment plants, industrial septic systems. It's a pretty extensive list. Wastewater treatment plants cannot be any commercial industrial activities, handles, utilize, generates, or deposits. A vehicle and equipment services, repair facilities, dry cleaning, laundromats, operations, commercial car wash operations, and maintenance yards for pesticides, fertilizing, mixing. So it's a pretty extensive list.
But I guess procedurally, today, it's not a county mapped wellhead protection area.
Correct.
So I guess technically they could proceed with the Euclidean rezoning until that happens.
I would say correct.
If anybody wants us to approve without having this figured out, but I doubt we'll get an approval without having this figured out, so.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether you can, I guess it doesn't affect your future land use map amendment, because that could still be MPUD if it had to be.
Correct.
That's my question, David. If our own wellhead protection ordinance is going to prevent the rezoning, then I question whether it's
Why
wise
change
to
the
move
land use?
forward with the land use
It does not
change.
prohibit the rezoning. it prohibits certain uses that rezoning, that district would
I thought
allow.
I heard Liam say that it prohibits
It-
rezoning
Oh,
to,
to IL, I1, we'd have to use an MPUD so that we could list, we can have this
Couldn't do
use
a
and not this
Euclidean
use. We can
rezone,
have
you'd
this
have to
use
do
and
an
not that use, so
It prohibits a Euclidean rezoning. It does not prohibit a master plan unit development district
purpose, we
rezoning.
wrote that so that we could condition it. We do deed restrictions now to condition, that's what
And you can,
David was
you
asking.
can have an MPUD in IL. That's a permissible zoning district in IL. So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't affect the land use change, but when they come in to rezone, if it's now a mapped wellhead protection area, then they won't be able to rezone to I1.
Yeah, if it's mapped, then it needs to be MPUD. If it's not mapped, I'm sure I would be doing I1 with deed restrictions.
does Mr. Horak's presence here today constitute notice to the county that he has a well? And I know he has one, because I actually.
I think
am
he needs to
working on
provide the
property right across the
I think
street.
he should provide the information.
Well, I think he should and he will.
Brad, what is the how does it work? What do we need to do to actually amend our maps?
So it says, the code element actually says, operators and/or owners of community water systems shall provide the county with copies of applications to renew water use, water supply permits, and final permits issued by FDEP and/or the SWIFT-MUD. Community water systems shall provide the county with updates to existing water use or supply permits, and additionally, water use supply permit applications for new supply wells at the time of application to FDEP and SWIFT-MUD. So they basically give us the maps and essentially the
My question
science.
is, when does it become a mapped area that's subject to our ordinance? Does it go to the board by resolution? Does it approved by the county administrator? Like, who actually, maybe Barbara, you remember from this from when you worked
Community
on?
water systems shall provide, if necessary, to delineate or revise protection areas within 90 days of a request to the county, a calibrated pump test to maximize the capacity. Community water systems serve the project, 95% build out, et cetera, et cetera. So essentially, they need to provide us the science and the information.
Yeah, that's not my question, Brad. My
David's
question is,
asking
But once that's
process.
provided, who
once that's
approves it?
provided, who actually says it's now a mapped area? Is it the board? Is it Terry? Is it?
It's the Board of County Commissioners.
So there's something that goes to the Board of County Commissioners to amend the map?
Correct.
Is that an amendment of the Land Development Code, or is it done by resolution? What's the procedural mechanism by which we amend our maps?
I'm going to bet resolution, because I think when we've changed maps before by resolution, but I don't have the code in front of me.
The code section I'm looking at refers to a so-called map amendment. Well, we'd have to look into it a little bit more.
I think it was done by resolution last time we did it, but we did one in Holiday for the
Okay,
Wawa.
we
DOCC
would have to-
resolution, non-administrative.
It's board, it's to protect everybody, right?
So,
It's to
so I
protect
guess
the
to
surrounding
get to
property
Mr.
owners.
Moody's point, I don't think the mere fact that he's got up and stated he's got this is enough to invoke the ordinance. I think our board has to take
Let's go through the
some
process.
act to amend the maps.
I agree with that. We want to make sure everybody knew, and the board took action on that when we wrote that ordinance. Or had the
So there is a
ability to.
timing issue, because in theory, before the board takes that act, they could in theory rezone to I1.
That's gonna be my concern.
Well, if I
They're
I don't know how
requesting
many more
IL.
times I can tell you in the record, my intent is not to shove this down and try to beat something and affect the public drinking source. I'm on the record saying that on behalf of this property owner as a representative, so.
Well,
But if you all want to just scrap it, and we'll continue it, and we'll, just
No, no,
another
no.
day, I mean, and the-
Barbara,
I just want to move forward.
this is why I asked the question whether, would you be willing to deed restrict it to not allow if the fact there are wells that would be normally subject to our wellhead protection requirements, would you be willing to deed restrict it to those uses allowed by our ordinance?
Yes.
Because if that's true, then I'm not sure you have a problem, timing-wise.
I would agree.
Because she's saying, even if the ordinance doesn't apply to me, I'm effectively complying with it by deed restriction.
And that rezoning comes here.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanna make sure that
We're all clear.
my last name is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, so that's what
I'm just saying, I think
there's
there's a mechanism to do that even under I1.
Yeah, otherwise we have to continue until this map amendment's been updated.
Well, but
The zoning, right?
the zoning, yes, but
Yeah.
the future land use map amendment is not affected by any of
That's
that.
correct. That's correct.
We will
My
get
only
this
point is
addressed.
that even if you were worried that, about the upcoming rezoning, even that could be addressed to comply with our
Right.
wellhead protection requirements.
Doesn't affect future land use decision that we make.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just Terry Pito's Planning and Development, just to clarify the earlier comment, it's a map, from what the research we have, it's a map amendment that is approved by resolution of the BCC. So the resolution that the board would pass would automatically amend the map in the comprehensive plan.
Terry, how long a process would that take to get a resolution before the board for approval?
We need to schedule a map 90 days after receipt of a request to the county. You have to schedule it within 90 days.
But I do think there should be a formal written request from the utility. I'm a little concerned about acting on.
Me too, yeah.
Well, I agree. I will tell
The
you.
adjacent
I'm
property owner, I
kind of
agree.
shocked that the county is not aware of where Durwood's wells are, because I can tell you as an engineer who's practiced in this county for a while, I know where his wells are. It's not a big secret. And I know Pasco County has interconnects with his utilities.
Please, sir.
Somebody knows where his stuff is.
Well, sounds like we have a resolution here.
Yeah, let's just, I think we know how to vote.
How we're gonna proceed.
Let's just make the motion so we can move forward.
The question I have, if you don't mind, I wrote down 1964, then the last date I wrote down, he said that there were 3. The last one was in 74. We are here today, and it sounded like it was a secret from the county, and I heard earlier testimony that you or others had asked for this information, and the gentleman shows up today because you didn't receive it before. I'm just curious, is this a secret or what, you know? And I heard earlier from somebody to my left over here that we're dealing with water for the city of Hudson. You know, to me, that's a very important issue, and I think you had indicated that perhaps you might want to hold off on this and look, so from a study, and I may
Well,
interpret
we just keep going
that.
around in circles here, that's the only reason, but
So
I told their attorney, I take it seriously. I immediately returned his call. I don't know what the confusion is about that, but I immediately returned his call. So I take this seriously. Give me your information. We have a mechanism to address this. We've got a rezoning. We've got an ordinance on the books. I know Mr. Buer. He's been working in this county for a long time for utilities. So I think we should move forward because actually, this is all a good thing for these wells. Because if I didn't bring this rezoning forward, or this land use amendment, and rezoning. I'm not sure if the county initiated, if everybody would have got noticed, by the way, because they're about to initiate in this area. So I brought this forward, he got noticed, now he can get with the county, give him his information, he can get his wells mapped, and we all get to move on. So we're actually moving forward with this is actually a positive thing for everybody, in my view.
The question that I have, and this is something, it had nothing to do with my decision, but it's for you and your client, is you may pursue this land use change and then find out because of this wellhead protection area that's going to be imposed, that whatever your client's intent for the use of the property may go right out the window, and then he'd be back here trying to change the land use again so that it could be developed for a use that is allowed within.
Believe me, I understand that. That's why this isn't a final action today, but I think we all could benefit from moving forward if you feel comfortable. If you don't, I won't push it, but I think we could move forward with all of this information that's been on the record here.
I hate to change the future land use, though, with the potential that it could be thrown out the window, like you say. Because then we'd be back where.
I have I'm confident that Barbara and her client will look into the matter, and they're gonna figure out what they can and can't do. I'm in somewhat with you. I'm hesitant to change the land use, but if they want to take that risk, I'm not uncomfortable doing that.
When is this supposed to go to the board?
6:20.
I mean, so they have a month to work out some of these details before it goes to the board to actually get adopted or approved?
For the flu approval.
for the flu approval, right. So I mean, it gives them time still. I think letting them move through this process, I don't think we're really hurting ourselves or changing anything. I mean, we've established that there's gonna be, the property's gonna be protected, the maps are gonna be revised. So,
Yeah, I think with the right language in the motion, there's no reason we can't move forward, I think. And we can keep this thing moving forward.
I'll make a move to approve. I don't see any need to attach a condition to that. I think the county's gonna have an obligation to deal with that at the next stage of this, at the rezoning.
And I would also remind you, this is a comp plan amendment. There's not really a good way to condition it anyway.
Yeah, it's just a comp plan amendment.
yeah, I'll second that motion. I mean, it takes so long to get anything through the county these days. So to hold it up here at this, to continue to again, I just think it's a bad move. Let's just keep it moving forward and get it to the board. So that was my second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
No, I really have a problem with the fact that county
Okay.
didn't know about this from 64 to 74, and the fact that we are dealing with drinking water for a community, Hudson in particular. Just too many questions out there for me. I just don't feel comfortable with it. I'm sure. That's all I have to say, really.
All right.
Just
Okay, so we have a roll call
aside, I know
vote.
we're past this, but
Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Jamie Girardi?
Aye.
Mr. Derek Pontlett?
Aye.
Mr. Peter Hansel?
No.
Mr. John Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Christopher Poole?
Aye.
Mr. Chris Williams?
I don't think I vote on this one.
No, he does not vote on this.
Chairman Charles Gray?
Aye.
Um,
All right, motion carries.
I guess just an aside to staff, clearly you're gonna get a legal notice from Hudson Water Works, but there are other private utilities in this county. Might be good to send out a notice that if you've got facilities, our ordinance requires that you provide 90 days notice, and that way this doesn't happen again. Or hopefully it doesn't happen again.
So yeah, the code does require that they approach us and provide us with that information,
I
so.
understand that, but he
Let's
doesn't
remind
sit
him.
around and follow.
When was this
His
ordinance
job is
adopted?
to
Well, yeah.
operate a utility, all right? And he doesn't sit around and review our land development code for obligations that might be imposed on him as the utility operator in an existing utility. I think it would be a courteous thing for the county to notify other private utilities that might be affected by this, so that they can come in and that the county can have these things on Pasco Mapper. I'm frankly shocked that it's not on Pasco Mapper, and I'm gonna tell you, you and I are working on a project where I'm right next door to his entire well field. And it's not listed as a
So it
WPS. We
is-
checked it out and we knew it, but it's not listed on Pasco Mapper, it's not shown on any of the maps, and I'm literally developing right next to his well field.
How long ago was that ordinance passed, the wellhead protection ordinance?
Oh, it's been almost 20 years. So, and that was my point, is it's possible that we did in fact notify the private utilities
In the last
when
20 years?
when we originally adopted the
We
ordinance.
should do it again.
I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, I think we should do it every 20 years.
It's not like they have to send out 100 letters either, it's 4 or 5, you know.
Isn't the county buying most of them up anyway?
Yeah, for the most part. There's only a few left. But there's some on the east side of the county that still exist, and
All right. Wham, what's next?
Item P8, Gato MPUD.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Amy Heiler with Long Range Planning. Today, you are hearing the rezoning petition, PDD 23-7681 in the name of Gayeto. The petitioner is requesting a rezoning from C2 General Commercial District and AR Agricultural Residential District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District, or Master Plan Development District, for parcels located at the southwest intersection of Gun Highway and State Road 54 to allow for 320 multifamily residential units and 12,000 square feet of commercial office. The subject site is located in the South Market Area and Urban Service Area. Here's the aerial view of where this is generally located. And this is the existing zoning. Here's your visual for the future land use and your surrounding development or surrounding MPUDs. Just to advise as well, there is no map on this one. This is actually one of the first projects that is coming in within the county-initiated Odessa Town Center. There is a future land use amendment that is currently in the process for this. This area is identified as the mixed-use area for that Odessa Town Center. So the applicant is requesting 2 variations from the code, so I'll read those into record. The first variation is LDC Section 905.1E, Neighborhood Parks. The applicant is proposing a total park acreage for multifamily parcels to equal at least 10% of the upland acreage within multifamily parcels, and the standard LDC provision shall apply to determine what land and facilities may be counted towards those neighborhood parks or those multifamily park areas. Additionally, squares, parks, and plazas can be a minimum of 1/6 acre in size and counted towards the requirement of neighborhood parks, provided they contain hardscapes and/or programmable elements such as seating, sculptures, fountains, or play structures. On-site portion of the trail system required within this MPD also shall be counted towards the neighborhood park acreage. The second variation request is for LDC Section 402.5D, administrative use permits for the sale of alcoholic beverages, due to the location of this site being generally located near, but outside of the 1,000-foot distance of a school, place of worship, or park. The applicant has requested the variation from the sale of alcoholic beverages. So staff's analysis on both of these items. So staff's planning and development actually defers to the Parks, Recs, and Natural Resources assessment for the variation to Section LDC 905.1E, as it supports the request, we support the request of the cited section in the Land Development Code. The analysis is multifamily parcels are intended to be developed with a higher density than other residential developments, therefore basing park acreage on upland acreage of the site rather than the number of proposed units is more appropriate. Per Parks, Rec, and Natural Resources staff analysis, they acknowledge the constraints of the current LDC relating to multifamily development project, in particular, the development size and specific characteristics of multifamily development and the need for greater flexibility in neighborhood park design. Staff finds the proposed park request set forth in the multifamily parcels provides more flexibility to determine the park level of service and identify the need based on size, location, and form, as it provides a balance with the surrounding community and aligns with the intent of the proposed code. And the last staff analysis for Section 402.5D, administrative use permits for the sale of alcoholic beverages. Planning and development staff is amenable to the applicant's request and supports the requested relief from the cited section of the code. The specific distance limitation for alcoholic beverage sale and consumption from pre-K through 12th grade, public or private schools, places of worship, and county parks is intended to be waived. At the time of this rezoning, there are no places of worship, public, private schools, or parks within 1,000 feet of the project's boundary. The applicant shall require and obtain administrative use permits for the sale of alcoholic beverages in accordance with the code. There is a school site, daycare, and a cemetery, but they are located outside of the 1,000-foot buffer. They are within approximately 2,500 feet of the subject site. Here is the master plan of the proposed development. Along the frontage, being red, is going to have your mixed-use, vertically integrated non-residential uses. The brown portion being your multifamily pushed to the rear, and then your open spaces and trails. This is a submitted conceptual plan for the proposed development as well. And I will run through the findings of facts for the proposed rezoning petition. LDC Section 402.2 specifies variations from the code have been reviewed or may be reviewed and approved by PC and BCC during public hearings. Staff has reviewed the requested variations and find they meet the intent of the code. The existing future land use is currently ROR, Retail Office Residential, in Res 9. There is a proposed future land use amendment in the name of Odessa Town Center PD, running concurrently with this proposed rezoning. The proposed FLU amendment was heard at the local planning agency on February 16th, 2023, and voted unanimously to approve. The BCC also heard the item on March 21st and voted unanimously to transmit the amendment to the state. The proposed MPUD is located within what's called the mixed-use residential village of the proposed county-initiated Odessa Town Center area plan, which is intended to be designed with higher density residential integrated neighborhoods serving non-residential uses in a pedestrian-scaled walkable environment. The applicant intends to meet the intent of the vertically integrated non-residential uses along State Road 54 and setting the higher density multifamily to the rear. Proposed rezoning is consistent with the character of the surrounding area as it's classified for higher density, with the higher density residential mixed-use development across State Road 54 being Starkey Ranch MPUD. We also have Trinity Community MPUD to the west and Suncoast Retail MPUD and Ashley Lakes to the east. The area is located outside of the Multifamily Residential Policy Directive moratorium, which established the 2,000-foot buffer along State Road 54, setting multifamily back to the rear. Although it is outside of the moratorium boundary, the applicant is still abiding by that. The proposed MPD is located in the Suncoast Parkway Transit Center, an urban service area which is intended to focus the higher density residential development. And the school district's bus station's located to the south as well within the proposed development along Interlaken Road. The applicant has agreed to construct a multi-use trail along the boundaries east to the west, extending from the south of the project boundary to Interlaken Road and through the project to Blissfield. Approximately 4 acres of the project includes a Category 2 wetland, which will serve as an amenity to the development. And lastly, the proposed request is consistent with the Pasco County LDC Chapter 400, subsection 402.2 zoning amendment, and with the applicable provisions of the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan. And with that, we recommend approval of conditions to the BCC. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Amy, just to be clear, you said that it was outside the boundaries of a moratorium.
Correct.
I think your agenda memo says it's outside the boundaries of the policy directive.
Yes,
That's not the same as a moratorium.
I meant the policy directive, thank you.
Okay, in fact, there's no
No
moratorium in effect
effect.
anyway.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, policy directive.
Any questions for Amy up here? All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Come forward, sir.
Joel Tu, Palm Harbor, Florida, land use consultant for the applicant. I got bored with my retirement, decided to pay you a
That
visit
was
today,
very short-lived.
just to keep you guys honest. I have the pleasure of representing the developer who is the property purchaser, Altus Cardinal Living. They are a high-end mixed-use developer from Miami. This is their entree into Pasco County. They're one of a handful of quality mixed-use developers who are finally sticking their toe into the market here in Pasco. They have a large project downtown St. Petersburg that is in the permitting stage, also a mixed-use residential and retail office project. As Ms. Eiler said, we're kind of the initiator, if you will, of this State Road 54 Gun Highway, now known as the Odessa Town Center. We asked the county to work with us to figure out how to do that. And as you'll recall, very recently you moved forward the county-initiated plan amendment that established this overall planning framework for that entire southwest quadrant of Gun Highway and 54, all the way from the cemetery on the west to Gun Highway. We were allowed, and we appreciate that, to start this MPUD roughly concurrent with the plan amendment. It's been a long, almost 2-year process. We're very happy to finally be here. And our MPUD is the westernmost parcel in that new Odessa Town Center planning area. We have agreed, as Mr. Goldstein was clarifying, we've agreed to basically abide by the policy directive that requires vertical mixed-use buildings on the road frontage, even though we technically are outside that policy directive area. This was important to the resident commissioner and the PDD, and because my client is a mixed-use developer, they're happy to do that. So our front 2 buildings, which you saw on the concept plan, the entire first floor of those 2 buildings will be retail and/or office. We're hoping for the right mix for mixed use. We're hoping those will be restaurants, coffee shops, craft brewery, craft distillery, boutique shops that will lend itself. And we should be, hopefully, the catalyst to help get this town center off the ground. So as I said, those front 2 buildings are mandatory vertical mixed use, not optional. And then, of course, the buildings behind it will be your traditional multifamily project tied into that. The request specifically is for 320 multifamily units with the mandatory 12,000 square feet of commercial and/or office in the ground floor of the front buildings. It's important to note that Mr. Gaeto, the property owner, who's been very patient with us through this process to get the entitlements before closing, he already has existing C2 commercial on that State Road 52 frontage. So he could, right now, develop typical commercial out parcels, strip out parcels on the frontage. So that's why it's very important in our mind that we get this approved as a mandatory mixed-use project. Otherwise, you're likely to get a very different continuation of strip out parcels on the frontage, which could be done now. We are consistent with the new Odessa Town Center plan. As we said, we are part of what is called the mixed-use residential village portion of that. We have agreed two important notes here. This north-south trail along our western boundary will be a full-fledged 16-foot multi-use trail, and we have agreed to build it not only within our project, but most importantly, we've agreed with the county and the school district to build it from our south boundary line all the way down to Interlaken. The school district has not only the bus depot, but they also have an elementary school down there on Interlaken. So right now, there's kind of a missing link in that main Trinity Trail connection getting to 54. So importantly, this project will build that missing link that will get that trail all the way up to 54, so that once the county figures out where and how to cross 54, whether that's at Gun Highway or somewhere else, it then will connect to the trail on the north side in Starkey and then go all the way out. So this is a very important piece, and we're going to construct that as the county's agent, including the off-site portion. We also have agreed to extend that trail east-west through the center of our project so that it will align with what is called Blissville Road. That will be the primary east-west roadway through the Odessa Town Center. And lastly, we have what is likely to be the only full intersection connection into all of Odessa Town Center, because we have an existing median cut that FDOT constructed that we're going to use as our primary entrance off 54. And it is far enough from State Road 54 that DOT has agreed it can remain that way, and that it also can be signalized when warrants are met. So almost all the traffic coming into Odessa Town Center west of Gun Highway will feed actually through our project, which will be right between those mixed-use buildings. So it'll help feed that retail area and hopefully help it be successful. They'll come into the center of our project, then turn and go east internally and disperse to the rest of Odessa Town Center. Our timing and phasing analysis was approved on the transportation side, and we've already specified the intersection improvements that we're required to build there at 54. And we've also agreed to pay our proportionate share for the future signalization if and when DOT will approve the signal for the overall project. And then to conclude, the two variations, unfortunately, they have to be written up as variations. You see these all the time, but both of these requests are completely typical and completely normal for these types of projects. The 10% park variation is actually the new standard. It's what Parks and Recreation always supports on the multifamily projects, the 10% requirement. So this has been approved over and over and over the last 2, 3, 4 years. We just simply have to write it up, and you have to approve it as a variation. The same for the alcoholic beverage variance. This is completely typical in mixed-use projects for the simple reason that we want these restaurant and these other potential uses, but you create your own problem because of a mixed-use property. You very easily down the road could have internally one of these uses within 1,000 feet that could then preclude the AB license. So that's why we've learned the hard way to go ahead and get those pre-approved before you start, so everyone knows that if they elect one of those uses, and we run into this with school sites all the time, so we're used to doing this. So my point is, they're written up as variations, but both of these are the new normal and the traditional, and hopefully one day we can get around to actually amending the land development code to state that this is the rule so that we don't have to process variations with every application. So happy to answer any questions and also respond to any comments, but that's it in a nutshell, and we're happy to be here at the end of the process.
Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to thank you for working with us on the trail. We appreciate that.
You're welcome. And it should be very helpful.
Yes.
So Joel, speaking of the trail, this is one situation where the lawyers did a better job than the planners. Not unusual. Good job. Because the conditions of approval are very clear about the north-south trail, but I don't know that the MPUD plan and concept plan got updated to match the written condition. And so if you look at the MPUD plan, it doesn't have the north-south trail going all the way down to Interlochen. And then if you look at the concept plan, it's not even showing the north-south trail at all. So is there any way that those can be updated?
Yeah, we will make sure that gets updated in the BCC agenda package.
Yes.
Happy to do that. And we'll show that off-site segment on the MPUD plan going all the way to Interlaken.
So kudos to the lawyers on your team, shame on the planners on your team.
What can I say?
Yeah, I'm a little offended it wasn't updated in our package.
Right.
Can't blame Joel, he was the lawyer. Well, he was.
No, I'm not.
He's not acting as the
Retired,
lawyer.
retired.
He was the drafter of the language.
I want to know why you showed up without a stenographer.
Thought I'd give you guys a break. I know you miss me.
That's right.
Thank you all. We're happy to come back if there are any questions.
Thank you. All right, are there any people from the public with questions? If there is, please come forward and state your name and address, please. And we'll try to get any questions answered for you.
My name is Lynn Zablo. I live at 13220 Blissfield Road, Odessa, Florida. I'm the property to the west of the one that they're trying to rezone. I'm a wildlife rehabilitator, and I'm very concerned about the traffic and the trash and everything I'm gonna have from all these residences gonna be in there. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the Blissfield Road. If they're not gonna use it, there needs to be a fence or a wall or something, because they have taken those trees out before. There's trees there right now, and they've cut them all down and used it to get in and out before, and I can't be there to police it, to keep all these people that are gonna be there and get frustrated going out State Road 54. They'll be trying to come down Blissfield Road, which is just a limestone road. It's not maintained from my property down to where they're talking about making Blissfield Road, and they closed that road on their property. Where
Okay.
Blissfield Road goes, they closed it and didn't notify any of the neighbors of it, and that upset me. But I'd like to see them put a wall between my property and their property, like the bus garage did, to keep the property and the people and the trespassing and everything else down.
Okay.
Because I don't know how I'm gonna be able to control people cutting through my yard and stuff, because I have 10 acres there, and they'll be coming right through my property, and trash will be coming over. Even the bus garage, they throw the trash over the wall.
Okay, and then
So-
Blissfield goes right through your property?
Pardon me?
Blissfield goes right through your property?
It's in front of my property.
In front of your,
So you're to the east of,
I'm to
Project.
the east, I'm sorry, the east of the
Okay.
property.
okay. All right, well, good, we'll try to get those answered for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Me again. Herbert Heap, 2131 Old Gun Highway in Odessa, Florida. Okay, my property sits on the corner of Old Gun Highway and Blissfield Road. I believe everybody knows you come out the southwest corner of that flea market, you're gonna be looking at my place. And anyway, Tony Gato owned the property on the front there on 54 where he sells his gates. He brought the surplus property behind him across Blissfield from the school board. Pasco County School Board had surplus property. So he, in turn, owned the property on both sides of Blissfield, so he closed it. Pasco County let him close it, never contacted any of us. So what I'm afraid of a little bit here is they're gonna try to slip this through. Got another developer that's already doing it, on Blissfield. If they, start to build this and they'll start running trucks in, and a little truck here, and a little truck there, and a concrete truck here, and then not make any improvements. They're doing it right behind the Dunkin' Donuts right now in Monmouth. They, putting in that big storage garage. They have taken the fence down and they're running trucks in and out on Monmouth right now and haven't done a thing to improve the road. So I'm afraid this is what's gonna happen to Blissfield. And I'd like to see you sort of look at it. And like Lynn said, I think there needs to be a wall put up. I know Chris is familiar with what we did there, the wall between us and the school bus garage, and people throw the garbage over the wall. And Saturday, I know you haven't heard about it, but somebody broke in, jumped the fence, got into my property, got into my shop, broke the windows out, got in, stole, they were 2 guns, they were pellet guns, and this is what's happening to our neighborhood. So I'd sort of like to see, there's some way we can get that wall up. They're gonna do Blissfield, do it before they start building, and don't start running trucks up and down through there, and whatever. They'd probably be known to me as a pain in the butt because I sit there on that corner property and I won't sign the papers, because so far all the developers that have showed up are a bunch of shysters. And the letters of intent have not been very good, so I don't want to sell out. When they get Old Gun Highway built, and maybe the flea market gets the Lowell's built, you might get rid of me, but until then, I'm going to be a pain in the butt to you. So, okay, guess my
Okay,
time's
well,
up.
you're allowed to do that.
Thank you. I think last time I was here, my wife was in
Yes.
long-term hospital, and she passed away March 6th, so
Oh.
I'm not here fighting alone, so.
Always sorry to hear
See
that.
y'all later.
Thank you very much for coming. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Joel?
Joel, too, again for the applicant. I'll try to address from our standpoint those comments, and then PDD may well want to weigh in, because most of this is the county's decision, not ours. The portion of Blissfield Road that was within our property, my understanding is the prior property owner and the county did vacate that. One important thing about our approval is we actually pretty much reestablished that, if you will. Right now, we don't have any obligation for that, but as you see from our concept plan, we actually will be bringing that entrance south from 54, the primary entrance, and then rebuilding that east-west connection road. And the county has told us that we have to line up our internal piece of that with where Blissfield Road stops at our eastern boundary. So we have to line that up, because as I said, ultimately from the county's perspective on its overall plan, that east-west movement on Blissfield is the internal movement. We will be happy to stipulate that we will not use existing Blissfield Road for any construction access whatsoever. And that's not the plan, and we're certainly happy to have that as an added condition. We will simply access all 54 with our existing median cut access. If the county wants, on an interim basis, us to barricade Blissfield on our eastern boundary, that's up to the county. They may not want to do that, because I think their point is that once we build our internal roadways, they want Blissfield obviously connecting to 54. But Perhaps just the stipulation that we won't use that for any construction contract will help appease the other property owners on an interim basis. As to the property owner adjacent on our eastern boundary, my understanding is her property lies entirely south of Blissfield and, of course, east of us. As I said, we don't control future construction of Blissfield. That's going to be up to the county and whichever development projects come in east of us. But on our adjacent boundary, we are going to comply with the Land Development Code requirements as to the normal buffering and landscaping and setbacks. But it's my understanding from the resident commissioner and PDD, they very much, the whole point of the Odessa Town Center plan is that this is to be a pedestrian-friendly, connected environment long-term. Now, obviously, on an interim basis, no property owner is required to sell. They're not required to develop. They're not required to rezone. This is a lot like Connected City and VOPH, where basically it just says if you do elect to redevelop or rezone, then you have to do so in accordance with this overall plan. So we think it's critically important that we not start constructing artificial barriers that are really the antithesis of what the Odessa Town Center concept is, which is pedestrian interconnectivity and ultimately this open town center feel. So that would be my proposal, is that we not do anything different than what the plan contemplates on our eastern boundary. And certainly our quality project is going to have its own refuse collection and its rules, and we're going to enforce those, and we're not going to allow people to misuse someone's adjacent property. So my thought would be add the condition on the no construction access on Blissfield if you see fit to do that, and then let Blissfield Road development play out the way it's supposed to play out long-term under the plan. Thank you.
Would you be willing to construct a wall as proposed by the?
No, that's what I'm saying. I think that is actually contrary
I
to
just
the
want to
Odessa Town Center plan.
Thank you.
I'll let Terry speak to that, but I don't think they want to start walling off every one of these parcels.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer Mr. Hansel's question, the long-term intent is for Blissfield to be a connected street that would bring people to the future signal that's at, I guess that would be Blissfield all the way to 54, and at that intersection. I don't think that there's a need to actually barricade the stub that this project will establish at the eastern boundary of their site, mainly because the right-of-way is currently the Blissfield right-of-way that currently exists east of this site is overgrown in trees and such. And that right-of-way likely will not be developed into a road unless the properties to the east of the Gallardo site are themselves redeveloped and the road gets built, at which point those trees will probably come down at that time. In addition, the paved portions of Blissfield and even the unpaved portions of Blissfield fizzle out into those trees. So there's not even a path, so to speak, on the right of way. It's just land with trees on it at this point. So there's a natural barrier as it is.
Okay.
Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, I just want to make a clarification to ensure that the individuals who address that issue understood the reasoning behind it. You want this blueprint to be very clear, very clean, and very attractive looking, and by blocking in areas or barricading areas they need to know that is not going to happen, and there are reasons for it, that you want this blank palette to be clean looking
and in the
nice
meantime, and in the meantime, there is the ability to focus all of the people and future residents that will live at this particular site towards 54. They won't have any way to get through on Blissfield because that connection doesn't currently exist.
Which that would kind of negate the whole condition that we're talking about of no construction traffic because there's no way to get construction traffic through there at the moment.
True, yeah. The trees the overgrowth is there, but it certainly provides some comfort, some level of comfort that the right-of-way won't be cleared because construction traffic can't use that anymore.
Well, the developer couldn't clear that. It would have to be the county that would clear that, that right-of-way anyway.
Mr. Two, to speak to the boundary on Ms. Zabelow's property, you've got a type B buffer in the northern portion of your property. And a type A, it looks like on the south. Would you be willing to bring that type B all the way down? Sure.
I'm checking.
Okay.
Where the buffers are.
So there's a type B right there, and
Right.
it terminates at
She's here, right?
Blissfield. Yeah, she's right here. She's this property here, so it's a type A here. Down to the
Type B
southern.
on the
So it's type
west
B
side.
on the northern portion of the property, and it transitions to a type A.
It's type B all the way down the west side of the property as well.
Joel?
Yeah, I mean, the concern there is the site is tight with the building layout and the parking. I think that's why they went with the A on that part. I think the answer to that would be that if in the site plan, we can still make the parking work with the building configuration, then yes. But I'd hate to commit that in the MPUD before they've done the engineering on that site plan. The difference is a 10 versus a 15-foot buffer. It also appears from the aerial to be heavily treed and vegetated. So certainly you're going to leave those down that boundary. I think you're going to have a substantial buffer, whether it's 10 or 15 feet. So, I mean, we would make a commitment to look at that in the site planning process and do it if possible. They have no reason not to do it if they don't lose required parking spaces and/or building units.
Okay.
But it is heavily treed, if you notice from the aerial here.
Yeah, definitely is.
Mr. Chairman, we have some other options at the site planning stage as well. We're talking about the plantings within the buffering are what really create the buffer, not the width. So we can look at changing the width of that buffer if need be, if the plantings are what's going to help. We have some options, but we can look at that at the site plan stage.
And we're happy to maximize that aesthetic separation with Brad's team.
And we do have to weigh that against the obstructions that those types of things might create as well. Obviously, this is intended to be a walkable area, accessible and open, not necessarily completely shaded from view from everything. So we have to weigh a bunch of factors there. But the time to do that's at site plan, once we have the engineering done and we can actually look and see what can and shouldn't be done, where those actual connections make sense versus trying to guess at this stage.
Okay. David?
Can I just ask Joel one question? Joel, I'm looking at your concept plan, and that main entry road that comes off of 54 and then connects to Blissfield, if I'm reading the conditions of approval right, it says it needs to be a public roadway, but that might be a little unusual for us to have a public roadway through this area. What was the applicant's intent for that L area that I'm talking about?
I think our intent is, as I usually say, we will do that however the county wants it done. I'm well aware and told the client that you, for one, typically don't like the county to own roads, and that, you want the developer to own it. I think the reason we put in the word public is it was important to PDD that even if it's privately owned, that it be open to the public. I mean, the county's concern is that throughway has to be public access from that signal down to Blissfield and across. So again, I mean, that's up to Brad's team and the county, whether you want us to actually, if you want us to dedicate that as public right-of-way on the plat, we're happy to do it. If you don't want it dedicated as public right-of-way, we will still, and I think that's why the zoning condition was drafted that way, we still have to make sure it's public. In other words, we've agreed with staff, it will not be gated. I mean, even if it's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if maybe we should say, sure, remain public, maybe put in parentheses, which may be an easement or something. I'm.
That'd be fine.
Because looking at your concept plan, and that's the first time I think I've seen the concept plan, that looks like some high-end improvements
Well,
that,
we committed to Terry and Amy and Commissioner Starkey that, yeah, it's going to be very high-end. It's going to have paver crossings and, you know, it's going to be really dressed up to try to draw people and attention down through. It's certainly not the type of public roadway that the county would typically build or own. So, yeah, if you want to put a parenthetical that it may be an easement, we just had to make the commitment that it would be open to the public.
yeah, I'm not sure that we or you really want us maintaining
We
those
do
improvements.
not respectfully want you to maintain that because you might not show up too often.
So, so I think it probably needs to be an easement rather than fee, or we're
I
maintaining.
think we agree with that. I mean, like I said, it's going to have all kind of pedestrian-friendly traffic controls and paver crossings and landscaping to the hilt.
Okay, well, if I could get a motion to modify condition 16 to put after the word public, put which may be an easement.
Before we do any motion, unless you object, Joel, I would like to, I think there's one more question from the lady back there.
Certainly.
Okay. If you want to come forward and, come forward where we can hear you, please. And restate your name and address. And we're stepping a little bit out of the routine here to try to give you more time, but
My name's Lynn Zabel. I live at 13220 Blissfield Road, Odessa, Florida. I'm concerned about Blissfield because they have cut all those trees down before and started using it. The plumbers had only access to State Road 54. They put a gate in, and after it got all approved and everything, they started using the gate. And I had to sit and monitor it and call code enforcement, and they had to come out and stop traffic. If we could just stop traffic from coming down Blissfield Road if they cut all the trees down, because Blissfield Road is not made for traffic. It's all limestone, and I'm just concerned that they're gonna come in, cut the trees down like they do on the weekend, and start using it. They've done it before. I'm
okay,
just
well, I
really
think he's
concerned
gonna
about
come up, I think he's gonna come back up and restate. I'm gonna put words in his mouth, but that he doesn't have permission to cut down all the trees, so.
Okay.
But anyway, just
It
give him a
didn't stop
chance
them
to.
before from cutting them
Well,
down.
to be clear, I want to be clear,
in, but-
yeah, because I don't want anybody to misinterpret Mr. Pitos's comments. There may be a day when Blissfield is actually improved as an actual roadway and where those trees would be cut down. So I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that the trees would never be cut down, but it likely would not happen until we actually build a real roadway there.
Thank you.
I'll commit again on the record that the developer applicant for the Gaeta MPUD will not cut down any trees on Blissfield and will not be improving Blissfield because it's off-site, not our property, and we can't. We're solely developing our parcel in the access to 54, so we won't do it.
And
And
you said you were,
don't have the legal right to do it.
you said you were willing to stipulate that no construction traffic if it does get developed in some point.
Correct. Even if someone started sooner than we think east of us and started work there clearing that, we still will not have construction traffic coming through Blissville. We'll just come in right off 54. That was our plan.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to commit to that, I don't think it hurts anything by
Doesn't
just
hurt
making that an
anything,
additional
yeah.
condition of approval that they'll,
And that
won't be
satisfies.
construction access coming from
Right.
Blissfield Road.
So I think there's another thing that we want to make sure we include in the motion, David.
Which is to modify condition 16 after the word public to put in parentheses, which may be an easement.
Okay. So do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So the two conditions are the one I just read, and then that no construction traffic will use Blissfield Road. Was that what? the other
Correct, yeah,
condition?
that's the motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. For further discussion on the motion?
Just, and that they modify their plans, MPD plan and concept plan to show the north-south trail connection to Interlochen. Got that, Christie?
Yes.
All right, with that,
With that, we still have the same motion.
Same motion.
Still second.
And we still have the same second. All in favor? Signify by
Aye.
saying
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger.
Yeah, right.
He builds by the hour.
Promises, promises.
Hello again.
Hey.
Amy Heiler with Long Range Planning, as she brings up the PowerPoint. So the item before you is a comprehensive plan amendment. You will be acting as the local planning agency for this matter. It's in the name of PDD 23-0238, a comprehensive plan amendment, CPA 2209 Greenfield Delaware River Reserve PD. This is a planned development future land use change. The property is located in the South Market area and urban service area. And I wanted to run just a little history by you as we proceed forward with this project. So on May 25th, 2010, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a future land use change on this area from Res 1 to IL, light industrial office, Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre, Res 12, residential 12 dwelling units per gross acre, and conservation lands, which was effective August 1st, 2010. As you see here, these are the proposed levels of development that was achieved within that plan. Did have associated sub-area policy explaining that. So the existing or current entitlements or density intensity as is 1,316 dwelling units of residential, 1,000 square feet of office. There is light industrial, which allows for 616,200,000 square feet business park, and 103,265,000 retail office. I don't know why that was so hard for me. Additionally, on November 12th, 2014, the Board of County Commissioners approved a rezoning petition from AC Agricultural District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development, which further implemented the approved levels of development within the associated sub-area policy. In that Master Plan Unit Development, there were 712 dwelling units of single-family detached or attached, 604 dwelling units of multifamily apartments and condos, 144,000 square feet of office, 548,000 square feet of light business or light industrial business park, and 174,465 mixed-use area, which included retail, office, and public services. Additionally, about a year later, the applicant or the property owner came in and established a mixed-use trip reduction measure plan in this area. And it did align with the conditions of approval that were previously approved in 2014. So why are we here today? The applicant is actually proposing an amendment to the existing sub-area policy, which is in the name of Bellfruit Zenada. They are proposing to reduce the entitlements that are already existing. As you can see here, the residential entitlements are being reduced to 1,205. The office entitlements are being reduced to 21,600 square feet. The industrial is being combined basically into 160,000 square feet, and the existing retail is being converted to commercial retail and also reduced to approximately 32,000 square feet. So with the applicant's proposal, the future land use map will need to be changed. So the applicant's proposing a map amendment to 2-15 in sheet 22 from IL office, Res 12, Res 3, and Con to PD on approximately 557 acres. This area is located on the west and east side of Shady Hills Road, approximately 1.15 miles north of State Road 52. Amendment to the resolution to the applicant's proposal is an amendment to the FLU map 2-15 in sheet 22, as well as an amendment to the existing sub-area policy 7.1.10 and the sub-area map 2-910. There is also a subsequent rezoning petition for MPUD running concurrently with this project. You will hear that at a later date. Here's the visual or the aerial located for this site. This is the existing future land use, the proposed future land use, and conceptual plans identifying where the industrial will be located. As you can see on here, you probably can't see the text, so I'll let you know what the colors mean. The purple along the north end is proposed for light industrial. The pinkish color, salmon color, along the middle is going to be proposed mixed use, and the orange on the southern side is proposed multifamily. These are the following policies that the proposed amendment is consistent with. And with that, we recommend the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this project.
Any questions for Amy?
The green spots on the map are
Conservation.
conservation.
Correct. And,
So this is the
or
lighter
on
green, I
here.
mean?
On this one, or
Yeah.
on the
The
original?
lighter green on this one, yeah.
Yep, so the lighter green is going to be your open space park areas.
Okay.
The darker green is existing conservation lands. And it's actually a great question. Just to make note, the area that is bright green or dark green for the conservation lands, there is an existing critical linkage that is in this area. We have been in coordinations with Parks, Rec, and Natural Resources to ensure this area is preserved. So as you'll notice, the boundary from the existing MPUD is being modified. You'll see here, everything outside of that dark green is what you're hearing today because we are not touching that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon again. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard for the applicants. I would just make one note that I think the PowerPoint said that we're amending the CON, C-O-N to PD. The CON is not part of our amendment. We pulled our PD off of the CON so that we could show everybody that we weren't touching the CON. So our MPUD includes the CON because so that we would continue to own it and maintain it under an environmental management plan for environmental lands, but we left the land use as CON. I'm going to see if I can run through this in 5 minutes. I didn't ask for extra time, so let's see. I'm going to try to respect your time. We'll see how that goes. What I think is just really interesting to look at is, I'm really proud to bring this project forward because what was a project in the property owner's eye when it was entitled before, it was entitled by the property owner, the Dorset family. It's now time to develop the property, bring the property forward, and when you do that, you have to change things. And actually, we're changing a lot for the better here. The existing land use the existing land use and zoning, we're going to kind of talk land use and zoning because it's interesting to talk about both of them. Really dry just to talk about one of them. Not that Amy's presentation was dry at all. But currently, there's 1,316 residential units being proposed. Of all of those are non-age restricted, so that's 1,316 generating students for the school system. We're proposing 1,205 residential units, decreasing that, and of those, 730 will be age restricted. So we're going from 1,316 homes to 475 homes that'll generate, at a maximum, that'll generate children for the schools. The other thing you'll notice is the amount of non-residential that's changing, as well as multifamily. 604 apartments today, down to 304, 304 multifamily apartments. The 131 you see in that right-hand column is build to rent. As we bring our MPD forward, we have had comments on that from commissioners about making those platted townhomes, but it's not an issue at this point. We'll look at that as we bring the MPD forward. What we did do is right-size the project. What's the right amount of commercial? What's the right amount of office? The east side of this project is going to be an award-winning Pulte Del Webb community, and we're really proud to have them doing that in this area of the county. The west side is going to be a mudroom project around the mudroom mixed-use trip reduction measures. Mudroom, what's nice about mudroom is it sets the scale. It actually tells you this is for this much acreage and this many units, this is how much office and commercial you should have. So those are how we arrived at those numbers, 21,600 square feet of office and 32,000 square feet of commercial and retail. The light industrial you will note there's quite a bit of non-residential on the left-hand column. In meetings with County Economic Development, Pasco County Economic Development Council, the Dorset family owns, the same family that owns this property, owns the 300 acres that you looked at their land use amendment to go to IL on the west side of the Suncoast Parkway. So in looking at the planning for this area and where everybody thought the best location for viable light industrial along the Suncoast Parkway, they thought it'd be much better planned on the west side of the Suncoast Parkway, but there's already industrial uses. So we right-sided this project, figured out what the right amount of commercial and office is, figured out a good plan for it in Mudderham. We took the light industrial component and put it over where it should be, over on the west side, still with frontage on Suncoast Parkway, over in what's becoming an industrial node over that way. Let me see if there's any other highlights of the differences between the two. We did keep an area for light industrial within this project. So there still is a light industrial, 160,000 square feet of light industrial that is on the west side of this project north of the Mudderham area.
So it's the west side of Shady Hills, but it's the east side of Suncoast Parkway.
Yes. Isn't that fun?
Okay.
Very
Just
fun.
clarifying.
Very fun trying to keep that clear, but thank you. This is the MPD plan. As you can see, the commitment that was made by the property owner years ago to this conservation corridor is still here. We're not changing it. You can see that in the green. This is Del Webb's project and some of their sample homes. This is an amenity that they have. They plan on spending between $12 million and $15 million on their amenity here. As I described, this is the Mudderham side. This is the west side of the east side of the Suncoast Parkway. And we've got the Mudderham principles at play there. This shows you in context this project in relation to the ecological corridor, Cruise Lake Park, and where this project fits in. By the way, the property we've talked about, I guess I can't highlight it, but on the west side, you can kind of see the property on the west side. It's pretty much directly across from this project is where the west side property is, where the industrial is going to, the 300 acres going to industrial. This is a pretty cool slide here. This is something we put together to show bike pedestrian connectivity, not only within our project and the obligations of our project, but what's going on in the area. So we asked the team, what is going on in this area? We know our obligation by code is to put 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of our project along its frontage on Shady Hills Road. So that's the base, we have to do that. So then we looked what's going on to the north, what exists as far as a sidewalk or a trail or a path, what is proposed to be constructed by others, because there are approved projects here. As you go north from our project, there's some gaps. Then there's some sidewalks you see in yellow, existing. Where you see the blue there's 2 schools, Dr. Mary Giella and Cruise Lake, and then there's a project that I did, Crella. Crella has to do the gap there between where the star is, coming down in front of Mary Giella, across their property, and then coming up the sidewalk that already exists in front of Cruise Lake. The folks that are doing the North Pasco Corporate Center have to fill in the blue along their frontage. Both of those blues on either side, in front of Crella, along Crella, and what Crella has to do off-site in front of the school, as well as North Pasco Corporate Center, those have been commitments for 8-foot paths. So they've increased what they're required to do. Instead of 5-foot, they're doing 8-foot paths. And then down Soft Winds, there's a requirement for a sidewalk down Soft Winds as well. So you see that in yellow. Really notably on this is what you see in pink. That is the Suncoast Trail, the much coveted trail that people like to connect to. Many people have to go and park their car to enjoy that trail. The residents of our subdivision and through this sidewalk system, others will be able to access that trail via bike or walking. My client has committed to, instead of 5-foot sidewalks required by the code, 8-foot paths. along their project frontages. They've committed to fill in the gaps with 8-foot paths, as you can see in the orange there, the off-site improvement. That orange portion is eligible for mobility fee credits from the bike ped portion. But significantly, remember, our east side is 55 plus. No kids are going up that way to the schools. Maybe grandparents at this point, maybe grandkids. But my client didn't come in and say, we don't need to fill in the gap because nobody's going up that way. They looked at it and said, we're willing to do that off-site improvement. And even though the budget to do those off-site gap improvements exceed their credits, anticipate to exceed their credits. But again, I think they're looking at this as a community, and they also want access to that Suncoast Trail as well. By taking the two columns that I had, existing versus proposed, and right-sizing this project and taking the industrial and putting it over on Soft Winds, where there's more of a transportation network, by the way. There's Hayes Road, there's Hudson Road, there's Soft Winds. The industrial, if it would have been on this project, would have been just on Shady Hills Road. By taking this project and redoing it in the way we have, we reduce trips by 64% in the future land use, and by 74% in the MPUD. And likewise, we reduce the school children generation to the schools as well. With that, if you have any questions, got my team here. They would love to answer any questions.
Chris?
I don't have a question, I have a comment. I really like how this looks, Barbara. I think you all have done a great job. I know off and on, I was talking to Powers Dorset earlier, and this has been a long time coming. And so we have been coordinating with him and formerly the late King Healy and way back when, and we used to have a school in here, and then we said, no, it's so close to the other school, and we're still gonna have to figure out how to accommodate the multifamily at Marigiela, but we'll figure it out because there's other projects coming. But I really like the senior adult here, and I think I like it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just comment, he just stole all my words. He read my paperwork here.
He was reading off your paper there.
You can put it over here, Peter, if you want, if you gotta, put your book up.
It's a
Jamie
fantastic
won't
project, and I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Great.
We're really proud of it. Thank you.
Barbara, just a quick question. Can you go 2 slides down? I'm just not familiar with.
I can attempt to do that
There one that,
confidently.
you can see it on here, but the red dash line, there's the kink in Shady Hills, the red dash line through there, is that a realignment of Shady Hills?
So let's see if we can get our master plan back
There you
up
go.
here.
That's the one I was looking for.
So there is a curve on Shady Hills Road. And our project, there is a route study, an old one, but it's still an oldie but a goodie, to make Shady Hills Road four lanes and to realign that, get rid of the curve. This project has to accommodate the right-of-way for that realignment and the 4-laning. It is quite significant when you do that, because normally when we do right-of-way preservation, you take the road and you take a little bit from this side, a little bit from this side, but when you take out a curve, you take out a curve. And so you take quite a bit of property off the west side of this property. So it's quite a bit of a commitment to accommodate that future straightening out of that curve.
So how do you accommodate that? That's part of the single family?
It's on the Mudroom side,
Okay.
which is a mixed use anyhow, so it's a little easier to accommodate that and from a planning perspective.
Okay.
So yeah, it's on the west side of the project where that right-of-way comes from. It's on the MPUD plan, which is up towards the front of those packets.
Would you potentially add single family on the other side then, if that kink is straightened out?
So you can see the red here, the alignment here. The red is the right-of-way that we have to convey. So
So that curve wouldn't be there anymore.
I understand that area is
So that would all then become
going to be a pond.
residential.
He's trained me well. That's going to be a pond.
Okay.
So, yeah, no additional homes would be added when that kink is straightened out?
Correct. we're also, not only are we accommodating right-of-way, we're accommodating the drainage. We're taking the drainage for that realignment of the road in that area, or the improvement of that road in our area. We're taking the drainage and putting it in our ponds.
So Barbara, you said you're doing 8-foot trails on both sides. Is that in the gap too? Is that gonna be the
Yes.
same?
Yes.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it's, when you see it laying out like that, and you actually see an area where you're gonna have work, schools, recreation, and
that's nice.
connectivity,
Yes.
and a
That's-
regional trail, I'm like, wow.
Sometimes the planning process
Is
works.
that a spot where the planners did better than the lawyers?
Absolutely not.
You'll pay for that one.
Thank you. I know you did some public to speak, so.
Well, speaking of planners, I do have a question. Barbara, I do agree with the rest of the planning commission that it's a good plan. My only slight concern is, I guess it's a question, is how important is it to your client that you have townhomes adjacent to the Suncoast? I mean, because my general experience when I'm driving on the Suncoast is, you know, when you have apartments next to it, not a big deal from a compatibility standpoint. You're not looking down on people's backyards, and people aren't looking up from their backyards at the Suncoast. When you're, the townhomes, especially platted townhomes, that's a little different. And, I mean, has your client thought about just only putting multifamily apartments there and not putting townhomes next to the Suncoast? It also seems like kind of an underutilization of the property to put lower density townhomes right on, I mean, that just seems like a place that's sort of begging for higher density apartments and not townhomes. So I guess I'm asking, how important are the townhomes to, this is not an issue for your land use amendment, because the land use amendment just has a bunch of residential entitlements.
It does, correct.
But when you get to the zoning, I mean, I get that you could enhance the buffering there, but it just seems like it's kind of a waste of the land to be putting low-density townhomes right on the Suncoast.
I don't know the answer, but we can certainly work on the answer as, we'll be back next month with the MPUD. I appreciate the question. It's seller retained property, so there's not a developer, so we need to figure that out, and it's gonna take a
It just
little bit
seems
of time
like
to
the
figure that
lower
out.
density stuff should be on the east side of Shady Hills, you know, near the ecological corridor. I mean, that kind of makes sense, and so it seems like it would make sense to have a high density right on the Suncoast and then kind of bring it to low.
Either that or more
Seems like a
commercial.
bad fit to be putting low-density townhomes right on the Suncoast. That's my concern.
Definitely will take a look at that.
Okay.
Good suggestion. Okay, are there any other questions?
Not saying I'm a planner. I'm no planner, but.
But he's going to school for it. Okay, any other comments, questions, concerns? Anybody to speak? Anyone come forward?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I do just want to state on the record, we have nobody signed up on WebEx for virtual comment for any item today.
Okay, I think, are you the only person here to speak, sir?
I apologize, I have a cough.
That's okay.
My name's Matthew Cornelison. I live at 17662 Oxenham Road in Shady Hills. And thank you very much for this opportunity to say something. I think Mr. Williams made a statement that I thought it rang a bell in my head. He said, we'll have to look at some of these things down the road. And I'm reminded of something that I often ask my boys. I have 2 young sons, and I ask them, when did Noah build the ark? And the answer to the question, of course, is before the flood. This is the Planning Commission. I have had the good fortune of attending the Shady Hills Park and Civic Association meetings for the past couple months, where Commissioner Mariano has been very kind and spent multiple hours with us. And he indicated that this was the venue where we should come voice our concerns as regards this plan in particular. One of the big concerns that I have about this is Shady Hills Road itself. I would like to thank the developers for wanting to put an 8-foot wide path as opposed to a 5-foot wide path, because I think we can all agree that Shady Hills Road from County Line Road to Softwind is an embarrassment. It is the only 4-lane road in Pasco County that I am familiar with that has 2 lanes that are paved and 2 lanes that are dirt on the outside. The trail that is being proposed here will provide a very nice extra lane for all the cars that are going to be driving down this road to drive on, just as they do on the other side of Softwind. There is a nice graph that was shown in the presentation where the number of trips are going to be decreased on an hourly rate during the peak hours. And there was reference to a decision made in 2010, a decision made in 2014 that led to the number on the left there. Well, the fact is that right now, there are no trips. The number of trips per peak hour right now is 0. And yet on page 2 of, I believe, the memorandum from the Planning Commission, it says that no transportation study is needed because there is a decrease in the peak hour transportation needs. And as a Shady Hills resident, this just confuses me. We have no ability in this area to absorb this kind of traffic. There are 3 schools adjoining this project and the other project, the Gary Plastics project that was put through. And there simply doesn't seem to be any effort by whomever happens to be responsible to address the traffic issues before they happen. If anybody here has tried to turn left on County Line Road, tried to turn left on Shady Hills Road, anywhere from County Line Road down to Softwind during rush hour, there is no way that this number of units can be absorbed without a change to Shady Hills Road. It's simply not possible. I turn left on Shady Hills Road every morning to come south during the week. And when I do, it takes me between 45 seconds and a minute and a half every time. And you say, well, that's not a big deal. And it's not a big deal when it's just me. But when you add in hundreds of vehicles at peak hours, traffic's not going to move. It isn't moving now, and that's what we already see on Shady Hills Road. And so I'm hopeful that steps are taken that somebody, whether it's the developer, whether it's the Planning Commission, whether it's the County Commission, somebody says that something needs to be done about Shady Hills Road before we let all of these developments come in. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Do we have an idea of how long, because I know Shady Hills is platted, or planned out to be widened to 4 lanes. Does anybody know how long that's going to be? What the plan is for that?
I don't believe it's in the current 5-year CIP, but there may be somebody on, I don't know if somebody, Venkat, do you know?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's not on the list for.
So, but I think you need to hear from the applicant about the capacity of Shady Hills, because it's not, I'm not saying the gentleman's wrong, but I think the applicant's traffic engineer has a different opinion about the capacity of Shady Hills Road.
Venkat Vadikodi, Pasco County Traffic Operations Manager. Like I said, I don't have an answer to address the capacity issues because it goes to the funding and the CIP level. But as far as my knowledge, we do not have anything on the plans for the next 10 years, at least for widening Shady Hills. And from the traffic operations point of view, yes, we can do some cosmetic or Band-Aid stuff, addressing the safety issues along Shady Hills. But other than that, there's nothing from traffic operations perspective we can
Let
offer.
me add to what Venkat said, though, because the CIP is changed every year. And so sometimes what's in the existing CIP may not reflect what, if we start to see an influx of growth in a certain area, we may say, well, we may need to change our CIP to add roadways and delete some other roadways. So, and a good example of that is Old Pasco Road on the east side of the county, where we started to see a lot of development applications come on Old Pasco Road, and so our board said, hey, we need to get this in the LRTP, we need to get it in the CIP, and now it's starting to get design money, construction money, and so the CIP is a moving target. So I think what Venkat is saying is maybe true today, but
Can change.
it can change every year, and the board adopts the CIP every year, so I believe it is in the LRTP, so it's, any road that's in our LRTP can be advanced in our CIP if there's adequate funding and there's a desire by our board to accelerate a road.
That is correct, yes.
Well, and as we've seen here before, it's the chicken and the egg thing, right? So, they're not going to widen the road unless there's developments, but there's no need to widen the road if there's no developments, so.
But I have to, you have to understand that there's a lot of roads that need to be widened in the county, and they're all competing for the same dollars, and so, we get people here and they say, why haven't you done Collier Parkway? Why haven't you done Trinity Boulevard? Why haven't you done this road or that road? And so they're all competing for the same dollars, and that's why the board prioritizes that through the CIP process. But, like I said, Old Pasco is a good example of if there's enough growth in an area that they do revisit what goes in the CIP. Barbara, did you want to add anything or have Steve address?
Sure, I will. Let me just, a couple things. One is,
Wait, before you do that, though, did we hear from all public comment, or, because I know.
I was going to ask that same question.
That was the only hand I saw
Oh,
raised.
there's other people that want to speak.
Okay, if you want to speak, please come up toward the front so I can get you up here to speak. I don't want to keep it a secret. Okay, if you could give us your name and address, please, and.
Joe Rickle, live at 15025 Camrose Avenue, Spring Hill. We're talking about traffic and four-laning, and we don't have the growth. Big part of the problem is the traffic that is there now isn't Shady Hills area, Highland Forest. It's the traffic going through. It's a corridor north, which if any of you have been on that road, even close to rush hour, after rush hour, till way early in the morning, late at night, like stated before, impossible. It's a steady line of traffic. It's not. And to get this extra growth and then put it on both sides of the road that you're going to influx coming, trying to get on to Shady Hills Road, to say, well, we got to wait until we have growth. You already have the growth. It's not in this county. It's county north, but they're using our roads. And this other thing is, I see all this nice water. Where's that coming from? We got water problems now with the well fields across the bar. They shut down the wells over down south on Heritage Pines that dried up Hunter Lake, and the homeowners shut them down. Where's the water going to come from this? Pasco County's dumping hundreds of thousands of gallons a day of water on the side of the road. Every day, almost. I passed it again today. What is that about? Up and down Shady Hill Road and County Line. They dump hundreds of thousands of gallons. Just open the valve and run it to clear the lines because of the way the water system's set up. And I see all this nice lakes and stuff that they're proposing here. Where's it coming from? Along with what are we doing with the traffic?
Okay. Any questions? Ma'am?
Hi there, Jen Kerouac, 15925. This is a little high for me.
Okay. Can hear you.
15925 Green Glen Lane, Shady Hills, Florida. And I just want to mention that this is, I believe that the community, thinks that this development obviously is much nicer than looking at, 20 Gary Plastics plants. And we do see the effort from the developer, as the first gentleman mentioned, with regards to widening, making trails, so on and so forth. But there are still several concerns, the main one being the road. And I think that what I've seen today is what I continue to see, which is an extreme concern for the community, and honestly, me as a Pasco County resident in general, that it appears that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Because just as we saw, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, it's just the facts. The road's supposed to be widened. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. I've been to every MPO meeting. I've seen District 1 get $50 million, just the last MPO meeting. $50 million for 2.5 miles, okay? We are a main thoroughfare from north to south, the end. I've worked in transportation before. I can tell you what I'm seeing and what I've already seen. In 2022, 468 car accidents, many people injured, bicyclists, pedestrians. One man lost his leg, okay? These things are real, they're happening, and we continue to bring it forward. And I know you're only one part of the process here. But, you know, again, I come to you to appeal to you because the things that are being planned here are negatively impacting the residents of Shady Hills community. They're negatively impacting people north and south, residents from Hernando. They use that. It's a main thoroughfare from north to south. Mr. Moody admitted that he takes the 52 exit and Shady Hills Road to go north to where he needs to go. These things must be looked at and really taken a look at when you're talking apartments instead of the nice community. And again, I'm not a planner, okay? I can only think with my common sense. And to me, you put apartments, now you're increasing traffic. 4 schools, 1974 is when Shady Hills Elementary School was put in. No sidewalks, no improvements to the road. Parents parked on the side of the road. If a fire truck tried coming through, it would be a disaster. And I've seen that happen already. And I don't want to see it anymore. And so the Shady Hills Civic Association is appealing to you that you really take a good look at this, because the improvements need to happen before further building happens, because the building has already come and it's continuing to grow. So I appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you for coming. All right, does anybody here have any questions? Anybody else to speak? Barbara?
Thank you very much. I would note with regard to schools, in the package, staff's package, it does talk about Mary GL Elementary and the capacity. Those are without considering that the 730 units are age restricted. So those numbers are very high. And the numbers were rerun. Richard reran the numbers. So that was more of the generation of what the entitled project that we already have would have been looking at versus our age-restricted project. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out.
If I can jump in there just a second. So just like roads, we constantly monitor growth. Currently, Marriage Yellow is under capacity by a little bit. Cruz Lake Middle has a lot of capacity. You know, but we monitor all the schools around the county and work to adjust our CIPs just like roads. So as needed, we add wings or build new schools or whatever the case may be. So when I mentioned, you know, that's something we'll have to figure out. Well, we've known about this project for a long time. We anticipated a lot more students from this project, knowing that's coming, but now there's fewer students. But We still anticipate probably building a wing on Marigiela at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. When I talked about four laning, I was talking about our side of Shady Hills Road. You heard the first speaker, he's talking about soft winds north the county line. That's on the west side of Suncoast Parkway. So the route study and the four laning that I know about is where our project is, which is on the east side of the Suncoast Parkway, and that route study. The other thing is apartments, it's actually a decrease in apartments. We're currently approved for, get my number here, currently approved for 604 apartments, and it's almost a half, 304 apartments that we're proposing with this MPUD amendment. Steve Henry, we were not required to do any traffic study because, as you could tell by those numbers, it's a significant traffic reduction as a result of this project over what's already approved. But when we heard that the neighbors were concerned about traffic, the client engaged Steve Henry to do the traffic study that he would have done if he was required to do one. So I'd like for him to come up and talk to you about traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Steve Henry, Links and Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. As Barbara had indicated, this project, and when we did the methodology, we were not required to do a needs assessment or a timing and phasing for the rezoning because we were, as shown, significant decrease in traffic. However, because of the area, the client decided to go ahead and do a timing and phasing. And not only did we do a timing and phasing, and most timing and phasing are only based on PM peak hour. We did AM and PM peak hour to look at the impact on Shady Hills Road. And based on the analysis that we've done, taking into account the existing traffic, the growth rate to future, and then adding in our traffic, it does operate within acceptable level of service based on the generalized level of service of the roadways. So from that standpoint, it does operate today. It will operate when we're done. And then in addition to doing the timing and phasing that we've done here, to look at it from a generalized standpoint, when we get ready to develop, we'll have to do detailed analysis of our access, and we'll have to demonstrate what geometry is required as far as turn lanes may be required, and to demonstrate that it will also operate acceptable level of service, or we won't get the permit for it. So from that standpoint, we've gone above and beyond, and again, this is a significant decrease over what they could go out there today and build. So from that standpoint, I think the neighbors, again, I understand there will be an increase, but the reality is it'll be a significant decrease over what could be done today.
What is the level of service today on Shady Hills Road?
Today, it's C, and will be C when we're done.
It's C today, and after your development, it'll still be C.
Correct.
And I'm just going to emphasize to the planning commission members, when I, talked about CIP priorities and what roads the county builds, and it's probably the same issue with schools. I mean, when you have a limited pool of money, you tend to improve the roads that are most congested.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you that historically, we've not, if a road's operating level service C, that's actually not that bad compared to some roadways in Pasco County. So I understand the residents' experience, their actual experience may not be level service C, I don't know. But if the experts are saying that this is level service C, I can tell you we have other roads.
I take it back. It's actually, I take it back. It's because we looked at the available capacity of the road, but it's actually D, but that's still acceptable level of service.
Okay, so it's D today or C today?
It is, I'm going to tell you what it is today. And what we did is we went and did a growth rate. So today, it is operating at, and again, we didn't look at the actual level of service, we looked at the available capacity, but I can estimate. So today, it is C.
Okay.
And then when you look at 2030 with a growth rate, plus ours, it would go to D.
2030.
2030, correct.
Based on the reduced entitlements.
Correct, yes, correct.
And are you only giving the right-of-way for the straightening of the
Right.
curve? You're not actually doing the improvement of the straightening of the curve?
Correct, correct.
And there's no plan to straighten that curve other than a concept on some paper?
Well, when the county eventually widens the road, the county would straighten the curve.
It just sounds like there's a missed opportunity not to do it now.
Two, and that's a quite notorious curve.
Right.
Yeah, part of the issue, we have looked at it, but part of the issue is to do it today and to build it to where it needs to be for the future. So you would be building, whether it's the east or west 2 lanes of an ultimate 4-lane urban roadway. And so when you start trying to build a small section of a urban 2-lane roadway, it gets to be very difficult to do it in one little piece. That's the issue. Yes, it'd be great just to straighten it out, but the reality is you'd want to put it where it needs to go, and that's a very difficult thing to do with a small section, given you're going from a rural roadway to an urban roadway, which could change the elevations of the roadway, the drainage of the roadway. That's why it's not being done now.
My comments aren't necessarily directed to you. I'm just looking at this saying it's a missed opportunity, kind of.
Right, but I just wanted to explain to you why. We've actually looked at it, because we did look at that, whether that was an opportunity, but unfortunately, because of those factors, it's a difficult thing to do for a small piece of roadway.
Understood.
Well, from my perspective, and just for your consideration, it seems to me like one of the complaints is that, you know, we're trying to reduce traffic on the road, and I think by approving this, we're actually reducing the potential traffic on that road by less than half. And I think that's a pretty darn good first step. I think, you know, unfortunately, we can't do everything that we'd like to do all at once, all over the county. There's lots of people that like to have the road paved, and I agree that it's a problem. I've been on that road many times. But we have to start somewhere, and one place we can start is by taking a development that was approved for over 1,600 trips and reduce it to 400. I think that's a pretty good, darn good first step. That's my opinion.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, we have to keep in mind that this proposal is for a project which already has entitlements, already has an approved MPUD.
Right.
So I understand the concern of the residents that there's no traffic there today, but there would be nothing, they could go out and build today under their currently approved MPUD, and the situation would be worse than what we're being asked to approve today.
Plus, we wouldn't have pedestrian pathways up in that gap.
Yes.
And then we're talking about filling in that gap, which is pretty huge from a safety perspective.
I think as somebody said when they came up here, it's our job to plan for the future, and I think this is a good direction to go.
All that being said, and I'm not against this project, I don't want it to be taken against this project. I understand the technical complication in building half of a roadway when you currently have a 2-lane roadway that runs down the center of the right-of-way. And I don't know if we're saying right now in roadway improvements aren't on the schedule for at least 10 years. What I'd like to happen, and I know you can't control that, but at the county level, do something about it. I don't want to see any more dead body monuments around that curve on Shady Hills Road. Somebody needs to go out and do that, and that's been a problem. Not that's developed in a year or 5 years. That's been going on for decades.
I don't think it's a fair comment, really, for the county to say that it's not on the agenda for 10 years, because we don't know. It's reassessed currently.
And I'd like them to consider fixing that. That's not an unknown problem. It's a known safety hazard. And I understand there's places where there's traffic jams, and people may be inconvenienced that they have to wait, but people on those curves die. And some priority should be given to that. Not that I expect this developer to fix it. That's a request of the county.
It's good to note, too, for people that are concerned about traffic, that, you know, I'm one of the same people that's concerned about traffic, but unfortunately, trees don't pay taxes, and roadways are built with taxes. So we have to we have to, we have to have the development there as well, and, development equals homes and equals businesses, which pay millage, which then goes towards supporting these projects to build these roadways. So that goes back to my point of the chicken and the egg. It's something I didn't quite understand prior to being on Planning Commission, but I understand a little better now, too. So, this goes a long way. Approving this reduces those existing entitlements and also goes a long way towards getting to that next step of creating those millages to create the tax revenue to improve some of these roads.
Well, and it's not just tax revenue, they also pay mobility fees, which also
Correct.
goes towards.
Stole my idea again, the chicken and the egg, and David was talking about Old Pasco Road. When I moved to Pasco County more than 20 years ago, Old Pasco Road was an old dirt road. Well, most of it was, not all of it. And now they're working on it. Now that's 20-plus years. I won't go how many plus. This, in a way, is kind of, as someone said, a benefit. Chicken or egg came first. You need the population, because we all know, I hope we all know, that you need a population out there before they build the road. Case in point, Old Pasco Road, case closed. So I see it as, I can understand how the folks feel about this, because they would like to see the road develop first, but that ain't gonna happen, we all know that. You need the population out there first. And as it was stated earlier, this is a good concept because they are reducing the population that could grow out there. We talked about the entitlements they had for that area out there. Well, I'm not going to debate with anybody on it. I'm just telling you how I feel about it and how I see it, the growth. The growth can be a positive thing. Not that I'm a negative on growth or positive on growth. It happens. But I can see this happening for the folks out there. This will be a benefit to them. Because in 20 years from now, wherever I'm at, I can say that Shady Hills Road will be developed and widened. So, and as far as safety goes, I don't know if the county can put out more police officer or sheriffs out there, or the state can patrol a little bit better to try to reduce the impact of driving habits of individuals. May encourage them to slow down a little bit. But anyway, that's my comment, and I appreciate you all listening to it.
Thank you, Peter. Anything else up here?
Well, the other comment I would make is that I do encourage the residents to get involved in, the road planning process of the county. I mean, we have, I would say at our typical MPO meetings, there's maybe 3 residents that show up. At our budget hearings, where the board approves the CIP and decides which roads we're going to build in the county, we get, unless the firefighters show up, there's nobody in the audience. And so I'm not sure that it's great that you're showing up today, but the place where these decisions are made about where Shady Hills is going to be and the priority for the county are made at the MPO level, they're made at the Board of County Commissioner level. And this planning commission, they know about mobility fees and they know this project's going to pay mobility fees, but there's the second local option gas tax, there's tax increment funds, there's penny for Pasco funds. All of those things go into how we develop our CIP for the county. And that's all done through our CIP development process and the approval of our budget. And I would encourage the residents to get involved in that process, because that's where the real decision is made about what roads are going to get improved in Pasco County, not in the context of a land use hearing. So I know this particular developer is the target today, and I get the concern of the residents, but there's a whole other process that's used to determine whether our road money goes to Shady Hills or whether it goes to Trinity Boulevard or Collier Parkway or whatever other roads go in the county. And that's where I think the residents need to probably have a little more input.
Good comment.
Well said.
I'll go ahead and motion that this project be approved.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Can you guys, from Shady Hills, in the back, stay for a minute? Barbara? Staff? folks from Shady Hills have come out here, 3 or 4 times
Yeah,
now.
at least
I've
3
watched
times,
them come out, start to become pretty familiar faces.
Right.
And Amy has a pretty, what looks to be headed for a successful project out in Odessa. And what I hear these people screaming for is they need a center for their town, for their community. And we need to look at, and it's too bad Mr. Pitos has left the room, we need to look at how we're going to create a sense of place in Shady Hills. You know, I pulled up a land use map this morning, and along Shady Hills Road, there's a boatload of C2 parcels, only 2 of which actually have a compatible underlying future land use, only a couple of which could actually qualify to use that C2 under the commercial node criteria. So basically, these people have these worthless C2 entitlements up there. You get some nice commercial development. If we can create a village center or a town center for them, think about the money that can be used to build, well, that would just be required under the land development code for them to build sidewalks. One of the complaints we hear is there's no sidewalks. The comp plan calls for the staff to fix these things. This isn't something that just materialized over the last couple of weeks. These conflict zonings have been there for decades. They need to get fixed. How do we get the staff to prioritize fixing them so that these people can feel like they're part of the county too? Now, you see everybody nodding, but I don't hear any answers.
Budget for more staff.
Okay.
We have record numbers of submittals. We're dealing with the stuff that's in the door, and we're only able to take those in time as we go, quite frankly.
And I would also add to what Brad said is that the board has on occasion, like the Odessa area, we've got another request in by Commissioner Mariano to redo some industrial land in the Hudson area.
Yeah.
So the board has identified areas, targeted areas where they tell staff, go do something in this area. But it all comes from board direction. And so they can't plan the,
So
I
then we
mean,
need to get the board to give them some direction. That's your mission.
And talk about budget for more staff.
Well, I'm not quite sure I quite agree with that one, but that's a conversation for another day.
I'm not saying we should.
well, Mr. Pitos would have to address as to how many of these staff-initiated plans he can do. I don't, that's a question for Mr. Pitos.
I would suspect that that
Not
particular
rocket
area,
science, David.
I would suspect that that particular area that we're just talking about is gonna be a pretty high priority with the industrial node that's developing up there and all the
And that's the
development.
thinking.
so-
We've approved how many acres, hundreds of acres of IL in that area? Job creating uses, which is a good thing. Chuck, you pointed out that, you know, the first step to this is getting employment. I agree. So let's assume that these things are successful. Don't all these successful people in these successful jobs need places to eat, places to get their hair cut, places to buy their groceries? Where's the grocery store in Shady Hills? Oh, there isn't one.
52.
Exactly. It's a long way to get groceries. You go to Hayes Road,
Shady
Republic.
Hayes, yeah.
Shady Hills.
52, yeah.
There's nothing other than a rundown convenience store and a Dollar
You used
General.
to have to go to Spring Hill or Bayonet Point when Shady Hills first was
So,
developed.
if all this is successful with the IL, those people need a place to go get things. What are you gonna do? Run them all down Shady Hills Road where then they can go left on 52 out into the traffic jam at 52 and 41 to try to get the services they need? I mean, this is what planning is. So and I think the Odessa is a great example of how the staff can do it and can work with the community, and would love to see that. I think that will go a long way. Otherwise, they're gonna continue to come out and object to everything that happens in this area.
County
We're
stay
gonna,
to stay
sorry,
out
for
of
the record,
Hillsborough.
we're gonna need to have
Jerry, you came up to speak. What did you want to comment on?
Well, I think there was a comment that said that I should speak to it. And
Yeah, go
I think
ahead.
the question was, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I kind of had to step out for a minute. What is the Planning and Development Department's capability or ability to do an area plan for Shady Hills, presumably from the schools at Suncoast North to County Line, is that it? Or is there a particular area that you have? Well, in any event.
Your area of
Yeah.
expertise.
Well, I mean, we have about 30 comprehensive plan amendments underway in terms of reviews that are taking place. We just finished the Odessa, well, we'll be finishing the Odessa Town Center planning efforts this summer in June, on the 20th of June at the BCC. We are wrapping up the Greater Lakuchi Community Plan probably by August, the latest, I think, based on the current project timeline. And we are also operating 3 additional projects of opportunity in terms of code revisions that are required, or needed, I should say, maybe not required, but needed. So there's a number of extra planning efforts that are underway currently with the long-range planning staff. I won't give an estimate in terms of the cost, but it will take some time to pull together resources and also to scope out what we want to do. Is it, if it's just fix the conflicting zonings that are on Shady Hills Road, that might be, a lesser effort than doing something on the scale of the Greater Lakuchi Community Plan, for instance. So it's just a question of what the scope is and what we could accommodate, later this calendar year.
And I don't expect that you're going to solve all that here in a 2-minute conversation here. I'm just making the suggestion that that kind of effort probably needs to happen. I don't know whether that's I think you start with the conflict zoning resolution, but I think some sort of area plan is probably in order, and I understand that takes time, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to start at some point.
Um,
But you guys have to get the commissioners to direct him to do it. I can't direct him to do it. I'm suggesting.
That's the best answer I can give right now.
All right, Terry. Thank you. I appreciate that. Did you want to make one more comment?
And I believe Mr. Goldstein said that we need to show up, and I actually sat in front of you at the last county commissioners meeting. I give thanks that I have the ability to go to these meetings like today, when they're during the daytime and the community, many of the folks in our community, probably 85% of the folks in our community are working during the time of the commission's meetings, the planning meetings. So what we did is we were very proactive. And we got the Civic Association back together. And Commissioner Mariano has been at each meeting. We have communicated with the Board of County Commissioners. Back to the first time, it was before the commission, and we were pushed very late in the day because of the Saddlebrook situation. We waited for hours. There were people left on WebEx. So we are trying our best, and we have very narrow means to be able to communicate. We're emailing. We've asked for continuances. We've come to these meetings. We've been open. We've asked the commissioners, can you connect us with the developers? We don't want to do anything wrong. Who do we need to talk to? We've met with Commissioner Waitman, who was very open. The first time this was before the commissioners to go to light industrial. And Commissioner Waitman said, let's not have an old Pasco Road 54 situation on our hands. And so it was very interesting to me that Mr. Hansel said, Because Mr. Waitman said, that's what I'm concerned about, and he was vocal. But we all need, we know we need 3 commissioners to stand in agreement with us. We are a community that I shared at the very first time that I came before you and said, this community shut down because they felt beat down by not wanting the incinerator, by not wanting the dump, all the challenges that they experienced during those situations where they felt they had no voice. And so I don't care if I'm the only person here, gentlemen, you will continue to see me, unfortunately, and I'm very sorry for that. You know, but I'm standing in righteousness and not my own pride, very humbly asking, letting you know what we are doing. The last Thursday of every month for the last few months and from here on out until whatever time, because we can't predict the future either. But what I know to be true, because Mr. Moody said he drove it. Anyone else, including the other commissioners, with the exception of Commissioner Mariano, who was forced because we called, we emailed, we nagged him. He is our district commissioner, who drove partway up, and what else happened after that, I have no idea. But I look around me, I'm a fairly reasonable person, I like to think. I'm not against, you know, the progress. You know, I have an open mind. But what I know to be true is I see, and again, Vincat, if he's here, he knows I've been on those CTS, whatever. I've reached out to Ms. Russo regarding the roads. We are reaching out. And that is why we're coming here to the Planning Commission. We don't want to prevent progress. We're just like, hey, we're here. This has continued to happen since at least 1974. There's a lady in my congregation, 52 years, who said to Commissioner Mariano, I've paid my taxes for 52 years. I've paid my impact fees. I've seen my neighbors pay their impact fees and pay their taxes for 50 years or less. And all my money's gone to Wesley Chapler, a $2.3 million increase at the Zephyr Hills Airport to attract businesses. What about the folks that are already here? When is it our turn? And that is all we're saying. We just are trying our best to appeal to the people who have a vote. We've been, you know, the Tampa Bay Times, Fox News, they've all reached out to us. And we continue to be respectful and come to the folks with a vote. And I believe that we have earned respect in that fashion. So that is all we're asking. Thank you for advocating, Mr. Moody. I just wanted to say, I've been at these meetings. So, Mr. Goldstein, I understand, and we've continued to encourage people, just as these folks came out today, as they have time off work, as they're able, they are coming out. It's on Facebook, we're communicating, and we're doing our best with the resources we have.
Can I just make one suggestion? And I know that a lot of your group does work, but one of the opportunities that we do have both at these meetings and the board meeting is to allow them to attend virtually through WebEx. So even if they can't take the time to drive here and wait possibly through a 3-hour hearing for Saddlebrook or whatever, there is that opportunity to attend virtually through WebEx, and it's a way for them to get their voice heard, even if they can't spend the time like you do to sit here for 3 hours.
Unfortunately, if they're at work and they can't be on WebEx, I mean, it presents a challenge. And I know when I first started taking notice of things in our area, the commissioner meeting, I don't remember about the Planning Commission, but the commissioners meeting was like at 6 p.m., which was very helpful. I know, and they said there was a challenge with getting the work done, but I mean, you know, we are the constituents, and so, you know, we're trying our best. So those who can get on WebEx, do. I can assure you that. At the last meeting, 7 people were left on WebEx without the ability to comment, and just the ones present, myself and another woman spoke.
You
And
are being heard. I just want to let you know, you're being heard. We're all aware of that.
Thank you
you're
very
here,
much.
And there are discussions going on behind the scenes of how to try to help. We understand.
Thank you.
And you're being heard beyond
Keep
this,
pushing.
beyond this board as well.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much.
And the other comment I'll make to you is that, and I appreciate Mr. Moody's suggestion, but the planning process is, the land use planning process is relatively slow. I mean, even the Odessa plan, that was record pace, how fast that went through. So it sounds like your biggest issue in this area, I'm not saying it's your only issue, but one of your biggest concerns that I'm hearing today is Shady Hills Road, safety on Shady Hills Road, capacity on Shady Hills Road. That's actually a much easier process to deal with. That's just asking our board to prioritize that road in our CIP. That doesn't require Mr. Pitos to go do land use planning and
David,
charrettes
take a
and.
drive up there, okay? Take a drive up there. It's underinvested. All right, it's a place that right now can go north or it can go south. And you know what I mean by going south, the wrong way real quick. And this is a place that, talk about the Shady Hills Community Center. Who built that? Where'd the money come for that place? That was the residents put there.
We can't talk,
Yeah.
we can't talk from the audience. But John, let David finish.
Yeah, I
that. Let
wasn't
David
trying to say that there aren't other concerns in this area. My point is that I hate to see them, if their biggest concern is the roadway, and I'm not saying there's not others, okay? That's simply a matter of our board saying this is a high priority road. They've done it on Old Pasco Road, they've done it on, when Moon Lake had safety issues, I saw them in record time accelerate that project. So
When you
accelerating.
say our board, you mean BCC.
BCC, not you all, okay. But, so that's actually a fairly easy process, and I saw it. I was here when parents showed up, their children died on Moon Lake Road, and it was a sad situation. And our board took fairly immediate action to make safety improvements on Moon Lake Road. Old Pasco, when we started seeing all that development, it got accelerated in the LRT, I mean, so that didn't wait on Mr. Pitos to do a land use plan. That was record pace. So my point is, if they can affect that change fairly quickly, even if Mr. Pitos takes 3 years to do a land use plan, it's a quick process to get a road accelerated. I mean, it may not be quick to get it constructed, but I've seen our board, when there's a true safety concern or a true capacity concern, accelerate road projects fairly quickly. It's just a matter, the board just has to make it a priority. And so I wasn't dismissing anything that you were talking about in terms of the community center or the other areas that are going on in Shady Hills. I'm only pointing out that I think, I view this as a phased process. And I think they can deal with the first phase, which is let's get Shady Hills Road fixed. That can be done fairly quickly. And it doesn't need Mr. Pitos to do that. And I know the problem with the community center, and I can tell you that I've had some conversations with our Parks Department. I know that they're moving towards evicting the current tenant of the community center so that they have access to the community center. So, I think other things are happening. My only point is that I don't want them to leave here today to think that they got to wait on Mr. Pitos to do a plan before something's going to happen. I think that they can get immediate results with the road.
No, what I'm asking is that planning start to address, I understand it's not gonna happen overnight.
Right.
I understand it's a long haul. But when we wanna do things, like when we wanna do it in Odessa, it can get done. And if we wanna do it in Shady Hills, we'll find a way to get it done. And I'm just telling the residents, they'll have to pressure the commissioners to give the orders to get it done. I don't have the ability to grant those, to give those orders.
And we've met with 2 out of 5. So more to come, and you'll continue to see me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add, if I may, speaking about the big ideas that a community might have for themselves, in this case Shady Hills, but wherever in the county, This summer, the Planning Development Department is going on tour, so to speak, to conduct Pasco 2050 visioning workshops across the county and in different areas. There is a workshop that is currently being planned for this northwestern part of the county, where residents from Shady Hills, from Hudson, from wherever, up north and west, can come out and share their big ideas for how they want to see the county grow in the next, 25 years or so. So I just wanted to put that out there too, so that there are specific plans that we can do for these areas, but we can also begin the process by,
I think
sharing
that's
the
great.
big
I think that
ideas.
They need to feel like they're included.
Are those
That's
workshops
good.
by chance in the evening?
They are, they will be.
Okay.
There's one tonight at St. Leo at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. at 6:30 at St. Leo tonight. So we get that part of the county tonight, and then there's one in Holiday. We're planning for Hudson and a couple of other places too. And as we go through the summer, if y'all want a update from us on the progress of the workshops, when next ones are planned, we can definitely provide that information to the Planning Commission as well.
That's great, Terry. Thank you very much. Good idea. Okay.
All right.
All right, any other comments?
I'd like to
or
make a motion to
questions?
adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement.
Nay.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Ways and wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass clippings, trash, oils, and pet waste wash into gutters and storm drains when it rains. Stormwater carries these pollutants directly into our lakes and rivers, creating an unhealthy environment for fish, waterfowl, and other aquatic animals. Storm drains are meant for clean rainwater. Most other discharges are illegal. If you suspect an illicit discharge, please contact Pasco County Department of Public Works at 727-834-3611.
You're listening to the Pasco Podcast with Mike Carvala. Welcome to Season 3 of Pasco Podcast, a series about leadership and public service. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the nearly 600,000 people of Pasco County, as represented by the Board of County Commissioners. It's through their trust and empowerment of our workforce and leadership team that we're able to bring you this podcast. This podcast is designed to help public servants build leadership skills and leverage them for success by sharing the experiences of our peers.
Hi, I'm Joanna Cheshire, Pasco County Administration Chief of Staff. I'm filling in for Mike for Women's History Month. We've been officially celebrating women's contributions to society since 1980, when President Jimmy Carter issued a presidential proclamation for National Women's History Week. Now, of course, it's a month-long celebration. So we thought it fitting to invite two of our female leaders to the table, Budget Manager Amy Farrell and Corrections Captain Kim Riggins. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. I'm excited to learn about more of your leadership background and what you do and bring this to our viewers too. So we'll just start off with telling us about yourself and how you came to Pasco County.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. So I actually got poached from a Sterling Examiner training to come work here. I worked for the Department of Children and Families for 11 and a half years, and we hosted training a lot. And the then budget manager had come. I knew her already ahead of time. And there were some vacancies, and she's like, "Have you ever thought of?" And I was like, "Well, I haven't." And then, of course, after like an arduous pros and cons list, some tears were shed. Tough decisions were had, and been here ever since.
Oh, wow. That's great. Did you do Sterling stuff at DCF?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was, so that kind of connection, knowing that we were implementing that here, and that was the leadership framework and how the county was marching forward, I was like, it just felt like our values kind of aligned.
That's wonderful. What about you, Captain?
Yeah, so I started working in the Pasco County Jail 24 years ago underneath the sheriff's office, right? So when the jail transitioned from the sheriff's office to the county back in October, I transitioned right along with them. So here I am, and I'm really excited about the transition and what this means for us as a department.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy we are to have you part of the county. I was part of the transition team with you, and it was just a joy to work with you last year. I know it was hard for everybody. A lot of changes, a lot of unknowns.
Right.
But you definitely, in your leadership, you made it easier. And I'm from this side, I can speak with honesty with that. But I'm sure your team felt the same way at the jail. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
It was a pleasure working with you. Really.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. You're both great examples of strong female leaders. When did you first realize you wanted to lead others? Do you know you are leading others?
Well, if you were to ask my siblings, they'd probably say the day I was born, I came out bossy, right? But all kidding aside, I don't know if there's an actual moment or a time where I was like, oh, this is it. I'm a leader now, or, oh, I really want to lead. I just kind of feel that, organically it happened over time. I know once I had that first opportunity working professionally in more of a formal leadership role, it like ignited a spark in me, right? And so having the ability to like impact others and help others see their potential and grow and in turn allowing myself to grow while doing so, it just literally lit, like I said, a spark, a passion in me. And it's something that I just truly find satisfying. There's nothing more rewarding to me than being able to take somebody who's maybe struggling a little bit or who needs a little coaching or guidance or maybe just encouragement and really like helping them say, I can do this, I can get there, I can be able to accomplish this. And then whether it's minutes, weeks, months, years later, them coming back to you and saying, wow, thank you. Thank you for what you did. And whether, just being there and encouraging me and giving me the tools to succeed. Man, I want to bottle that up, and sell it because it's an amazing feeling that I don't think you can get that in any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Abby?
I was pretty young. Playing sports growing up, I was a soccer player, and it kind of came organically, wanting to take some of the stress from my team members and just kind of carry it, right? Like, let's have fun, let's play. If there's like a penalty kick or something, I would raise my hand. I'll wear that burden. You all have fun, and then we'll have fun together, right? And so that kind of was the start of it for me. So like I grew into captain of like my high school team, and then not so much college. That's a whole different kind of pedigree. I was playing D1 school, but I had another captain who was actually the female leader who inspired me, I think, the most. But it just kind of, it fit right. And then I just kind of built on that underlying value of that teamwork, that camaraderie, and doing the hard work alongside your team so they know they can do it because they see you doing it.
Right.
I love that. And listening to both of you, it kind of sounds like, with nurturing, like taking that burden on for your team so it's easier for them. And then also the teaching aspect. That just kind of reminded me of like some of my best teachers and how as adults, we look back and you think like how powerful their impact was in your life. And so that leads me greatly into the next question of how's your leadership style different than your male counterparts?
So for me, I don't know if it's really different. To me, leadership isn't about me. It's about the people I'm leading, right? So I think it has to be very transitional. And how I handle one person versus the other might be different, right? Regardless if they're male or female. I think truly in order to be successful, you have to see what makes each person tick and kind of adjust your way and your style for each person.
Yeah, no, I love that she said that because it really is about what does my person, what do my people, what do they need from me in this moment? And moment to moment, day to day, that can change. Right. And so we've got to be kind of flexible and agile. And it's not about how do I necessarily aspire to be a leader, but what do you need from me today? And how can I be flexible and adapt and give that to you, even if that's outside of my comfort zone? Because that's what I signed up for.
Right.
Yeah, I love the curveball of like when you're interviewing for a job and they say, what's your leadership style? And it's like, well, depends on the day and the person, and,
Right.
you know, whatever I need to be. And you're right, that's incumbent upon good leaders is to be able to adapt and learn all those different styles,
Right.
maybe a hybrid of multiple, and delivering that to your team for sure.
And asking for that feedback, right? Like, so I thought I really nailed it, but did I drop the ball?
Right.
Like, did I give you what you needed? Like, and having that kind of follow-up dialogue and make sure, like, okay, that was actually what you needed from me.
Right.
Or asking the question, are you just here to vent or do you want a solution? Right. And so kind of knowing like, okay, so that's what you need from me right now, but also following up, like, how'd I do?
Right.
Yeah, it goes both ways for sure. And I've asked my team before, you know, what could I have done differently? Or give me some feedback. Give me what I can work on as a manager, because I want to get better as a leader and managing my team. And so I can't do that. I can't get into your head. I can't guess what I could have done better or whatever. So it's, and I think that also a good leader is open to that feedback.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that. Have you guys experienced any resistance as a female leader?
So I feel like, not necessarily as a female leader, but I've definitely experienced some resistance being a female on a boys' field. Right. And like one of those, if you're not going to make space for me at the table, sometimes I just got to either carve out my own space or play on a different field.
Yeah.
And so for me, you know, I have been so blessed, and I know that I'm fortunate, and it's not this way everywhere, right? But in corrections in Pasco County, we don't really see male female, so it's very unique environment, especially in a male dominated field, right? I mean, it's all men, right? There's a few of us ladies, but I can tell you from day one, and a story I'll share is, when I went to the academy a long time ago, I remember we were doing defensive tactics, right? And back then I was a lot smaller than I am now. And the instructor, you know, we got randomly paired up. And of course, I'm with the biggest guy in the class, and he's strong and just got out of the military. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to hurt, right? And so, of course, we're doing everything we need to do, but he's not giving it 110 because he's like, man, I don't want to hurt her, you know? And I'll remember, and it's funny because the instructor at the time was Chief Jenkins now. She was a sergeant at the time. And she came around and she's like, hey, Tony, listen, if you don't do it 100% once, you're going to keep doing it until you do. And so that stuck with me throughout my entire career. Like, we are all got to do this together, and we all got to be at the same level. And so I wouldn't want it any other way. And of course, Tony was like, yes, ma'am, you know, and off he went. And the people that have been put in positions and promoted and grown along the way, I truly believe fully that they're there because of their hard work and their merit, and they earned it. And so I am so proud that we have so many great female leaders in our department. I mean, a lot of female leaders, and it's awesome, you know. I'd say probably the only resistance, and again, I don't know if it's male, female, but one thing I get sometimes is people, when they first meet me, they'll say, you know, man, I was intimidated by you. You're intimidating. And it kind of would make me giggle because I'm like, I'm intimidating or you're intimidated, right? Because those are two totally different things, right? So I'm not mean. I'm not aggressive. I'm just very honest and outspoken, and I'm very confident in who I am as a person and as a leader. And so I had to realize, for my own sake as well as for them, that this isn't about me, right? It was about the perception of me. And so it was my responsibility to change that. Right. And so literally just after a few moments, they realize that I'm this big goofball who laughs and jokes about everything. And, you know, my humor is that of a 12-year-old. And so, so it usually breaks the ice and comes across. But I think just being a strong female in a male dominated industry, that sometimes that's the initial take is, oh, she's going to be hard. She's going to be harsh. And it's just not.
Sometimes it makes me think that it can be harder for us because we have to adapt and think of that way.
Right.
And so like we have to make sure to either turn it up or tone it down depending on who we're with. And I think that it kind of makes us a more dynamic leader if you think about it that way. But
I think that just naturally raises our emotional intelligence to a degree that maybe our male counterparts haven't had to fine tune that skill, right?
Sure.
Because they can just come as you are, and that's just globally accepted, right?
Right.
As females keep breaking those glass ceilings, right? And we're making space. I think that might start to change and adapt over time. But for the time being, you're right. Sometimes we got to tone it up or turn it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in keeping with Women's History theme, who has been the biggest female influence in your life in terms of leadership?
So my captain of my college soccer team, she, one practice, we were doing lots of running. And if everyone didn't finish by a certain time, we all just kept going, right? And so we had kept going. And there was one girl on our team who she wasn't making it. So our captain just finished. Her whole group, they all made it. So she lined up, ran again. That girl made it. How do you not, right? Like,
Right.
We're putting in work. We're a team, right? We are only as strong as our weakest link. And so here's our captain
That's awesome.
and that sticks,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So I think I've had two really, really strong female leaders in my professional career. And so the first would be retired Lieutenant Barbara Taylor, right? She is an amazing woman and she taught me so much and I'm so grateful to her. And every day I fight to make her proud of me, right? So I kind of, I've grown up in the Pasco County Jail, essentially, right? Which I don't know if many people want to say that, but on the other side of the bars.
Sure, some people can say that.
Right, sure, on the good side,
Yeah.
right? So, but, she really taught me what true leadership was, about selflessness and about pushing me. She would always push me to grow and go outside my comfort zone and make me do things that I'm like, oh gosh, but she cared. She cared so much. She was so invested in me and my peers that, her integrity could never be questioned, right? And even if she had to tell me something hard or difficult to hear, I knew that it was true because I believed in her and I knew that she cared. And so for that, I think